Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You good to go?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Welcome back, everyone. All right. So I believe we left off, just going over the scripture. That was the last thing that we did. So I just wanted to kind of just set the foundation with this. And so now I'll be moving into the next slide. All right. So now I wanted to just kind of just give like a, definition for the most part of, what trading is. So when I think about trading in, the like simple terms, I think about it like exchanging something. All right. It's like, okay, if I say, let's make a trade. All right. I want your apples, I'll give you my oranges. So, it's just pretty much, like that in a literal sense. Trading, in the financial sense is pretty much just buying and selling something to, make money from either the price going up or down. And I wanted to just take a moment to also highlight the fact that this is what differs when it comes to traditional investing. Outside of traditional investing being more long-term, another, aspect of what makes trading different is that most of the time when you buy a stock, you make money off of it, just going up, right? If you get into, you buy some shares of the S&P 500, traditionally you make money only when it's going up. But trading is one of those, few vehicles that you can make money, both ways, right? Whether it be through options, whether, be through, the Forex market and so on and so forth. So that's the benefit, of trading, in my opinion, or one of them. And, another thing to consider is ultimately it makes you financially bulletproof when you really look at it in that sense. Because what happens when we have a down market, and the stock market is generally not performing well. You have all the tech stocks down and the S&P 500 down. Like in those moments, especially people who have 401ks, for instance, right?
Mhm.
They, in that sense, right? Though you don't really lose money unless you take you sell the stock. But in that case, like you have what they call unrealized, losses, right? Which just means you haven't sold yet, but your account might be down a couple dollars or whatnot. But for the most part, with trading, you can make money even when the market is generally going up or going down. So that's just one of those like really, really good benefits, with trading because it just makes you financially bulletproof, like I said, because you can still be in profit even when generally the market, might be going down. So you have those moments where everybody might be panicking, saying, "Oh, crypto's going down, stock is going down, sell everything." And you're just smiling because, like the way you're doing financially doesn't necessarily like depend on that. You might have some shares too, but at the same time, like, you're able to make profit, going both ways. So now, like I said, I wrote the cons and pros the way I did because I always like to say the best for last, right? So I wanted to put the cons first and go over that and then the pros. And then also what you'll notice too with these slides is that I wrote it in such a way where like normally when you're creating bullet points, you want to put as little words as possible because you really don't want people to have to like read off of the screen, which you won't have to worry about because I'll do that. But I set this up this way so that if I was to share the slides with you, for instance, you're able to go, read through, right, with context, right? If I just put, just little bullet points or whatnot, if you go back through it, you might not be able to really like hear all of my thoughts pertaining to like the different like subjects and stuff. So I made it, this way. I have more words intentionally so that that way, if you go back to it, you're able to have a lot more context as well. So the first thing with the con is I have taken temporary losses, all right, which I call tuition cost. So, like right now for, people who are like students and stuff, some of us, we go to schools that cost, for a 4-year degree cost upwards of, $100,000, right? And we look at education, school as a whole as an investment, right? And that's something that we're willing to pay, whether we take out loans, pay out of pocket or whatnot. The cost of education, for most of us is thousands and thousands of dollars, right? And we're willing to pay that price because in our minds, we've convinced ourselves that at some point this will all be worth it, right? Whether it be me being able to get a job that then could pay me enough to, pay the loan back and things of that nature. So we look at tuition cost from the perspective of ROI, right? We know we'll get a good return of interest, from paying whatever the tuition cost may be. So I look at the initial like losses and just throughout the losses throughout the process as tuition costs as well, because there's data in everything. You always learn from both of the wins and the losses, right? There's data in the wins and there's also data in the losses as well.
Mhm.
When you lose some money, the data says, okay, there was something that you need to improve on, right? So, if you're a student of a game like me, you always kind of
Mhm.
like just reflect back and say, okay, if I have this system, well, what did I do differently for it to not work out, right? Did I follow my system to the T? If I didn't, maybe I can, kind of make the reference of the laws to that, right? And just improve on that as time goes on. So that's the first thing. And then secondly, you start to look at hourly pay rates differently, all right? When you start to have moments, for instance, to where you, like I give an example. Let's say somebody makes, so let's say in a year, they're about like 2,000 or so work hours. So let's say somebody makes $50 an hour, right? So that put them at maybe around like 100K a year, right? So for somebody making around 100K, I'm just giving, I'm sure I'm probably a little bit off with these numbers, but with roughly 2,000 work hours in a year, somebody making $50 an hour would be at 100K mark, right? So ultimately, for that person, right, that might be making that amount, when they, like, let's say they start to pretty much just grow and trade in, when they start to have moments where within an hour they make $100, within an hour they make 200, within an hour they make $300, they start to look at it different, right? Because ultimately, for that same in that within that same hour in their regular jobs, they're giving up their time, they're giving up their energy, and so on and so forth, right? And also freedom in so many different facets, like freedom of time, right? Freedom of location, right? They might have to be physically in the office as well to be able to get the $50 an hour, right? But and they start having moments where they're able to make twice as much, then it moves to my third point, which is you becoming unemployable because you realize that you're worth more than anybody's willing to pay you. Now you start to look at your hourly rate differently because now you're like, huh, but they pay me $50 for an hour worth of work, right? But I just made $100 within that same hour. So you start to ask yourself questions, right? Like, well, am I worth $100 instead of 50? Your eyes start to open up, and I feel like certain things in life, once you see it, you cannot unsee it. You just cannot. And sometimes it's better to not see it, you know, because once you see it, there's, you cannot unsee it. And so ultimately, yeah, you just start to kind of just look at things a little bit different. And then I think the last thing also from my experience that I realized is that like even when you try to share, sometimes you realize that like everybody may not have the capacity at the moment to do it, right? Because they just may not really like have the belief that's required, right? What do you mean I can get on my computer and make make my $50 here instead, wherever I am in the world. Like what they can't fathom that. And sometimes impatience as well too, because the trading, I'm gonna be 100% real, requires a lot of learning. And sometimes like we underestimate that, because we treat it differently from other things that make us money, right? Like we get jobs, we have careers. For our careers, we had to get certifications. We had to, go through 4 years of education, right? Just to be able to make $100,000 a year. And so ultimately, how can we underestimate something that could also produce a ROI on that level and even more? Because you don't have a cap on your earning potential with trading. What you do with your job, when you get hired, on your offer letter, they tell you, okay, this is how much we are willing to pay you yearly, right? So ultimately, going into, the job situation, they give you a cap going in, right? But there's no cap when it comes to trading. You make whatever your capacity can handle. That's it, right? And by capacity, I mean like just your learning, the discipline, the patience, and all of those different things. But ultimately, trading requires work, requires time to learn. And it's just like anything, the more you do it, the more you get better at it, the more you're able to learn. But you have to be able to dedicate that time to studying, to reading, to learning through the trials and errors, to just figuring things out and learning, like you are right now from other people as well. So those were some cons that I thought about. I'm sure there are, a lot more. Another one that I didn't put here is sometimes, what you make, today might be different from what you make tomorrow, right? Some days you might be break even. Some days you might have, minor loss or whatnot, right? The next day you might be able to make it up and more. It all just varies. So I guess that is also one of the cons too. Some people can't really stomach not having things being completely consistent, but everything comes down to the time horizon, right? If I have a bad day today, it doesn't mean I have a bad life, right? Because a bad day is not enough sample size for me to say, oh, I have a bad life, right? I have to have bad years and bad decades for me to say my life is bad, right? And I have to have, like me just having a bad hour doesn't mean, or it's a bad week, right? Because that's not enough sample size. There's 24 hours in a day. One bad hour does not mean my whole week is bad. And so ultimately, I think, that's also something else to consider, is that there, like every day doesn't look the same. Some days you make way more than what your target is. Some days you make less. Some days you break even. Some days might be, losses as well. But ultimately, at the end of the week, at the end of the month, there should be progress, right? Though every single day may not look the same based on like your longer like time horizons, you should be able to see I'm growing, right? I'm growing this account. I'm growing, in knowledge. I'm growing in, as a whole. So that's just pretty much it. So I wanted to highlight those as well too. And I think it's always important to just be truthful to people, especially, when it comes to things like this. I wouldn't want anyone going into trading with an unrealistic expectation or not knowing these things. I want everybody to know this is what you're signing up for. The same way people go to college for 4 years and you really don't know if you'll get a job. You're hoping, you're moving by faith, right? You're saying, I'm hoping when I get done with this 4 year degree, I'm able to get a job. And some people don't. Some people pay hundreds of thousands of dollars sometimes to go to school and they get multiple degrees just to graduate and not be able to find employment, right? And so ultimately, like it's the same thing, right? You educate yourself for, with an intent that you get an ROI when it's all said and done, right? You go through the rigor of school for 4 years, you do your assignments, you show up in class every single day, you pay attention, you take notes, you take tests, right? And so that's just one of those things. But going on to the pros, so one of the pros would be you get to spend more time doing things you love with people you love. And, it's because trading is just super flexible. I could be anywhere in the world trading. I was in Nigeria last year trading as well too. When I was there, I was there for 2 weeks, right? And so, um, that makes it also positive. I got the opportunity to spend time with family, but it didn't stop me from, being able to still generate income even while I was there. So that's, one benefit. Also, you have more time and energy to help others, which I believe is very important as well, because what happens when now you're able to get in the trade, let's say you get on the charts at 8 in the morning and by 12 noon, you're done for the day. Now you have more time, right? You can spend time, hopefully you read the word prior to, but you can spend more time reading the word afterwards, right? You can go on walks. Now be more intentional about taking care of your health. Spend more time with family. Be intentional about pouring into others because you have your daily bread, right? And you're not pouring from an empty cup now. You have what you need. You spend time with God. You made money for the day. That's your job now, right? And also now you have all of this time, right? You can take care of your health, build, whether business wise, things of that nature. You can even spend time learning as well, right? Reading. Spend a lot of time reading just to attest to that, right? But ultimately, it's because I understand the price of success is the work. That's it. You have to be able to put in the work. You have to be able to read, watch videos, learn and learn and learn. And it doesn't have to be excessive. Even if you say, okay, for 15 minutes every day, I'm going to learn something, pertaining to trading today. That's fine. As long as you're making that progress every single day, right? The progress compounds, the work compounds all the time. And so I feel like trading ultimately is a work that also works on you. And you'll see, more as we get into the slides as well. You realize trading is a mirror and it reflects you back to you. Because now if I go in and I'm not in a good mental state or I'm desperate to make money, I see that. It reflects, the results show that. So ultimately, when I'm calm also, I see the results, right? When I'm able to make sound decisions. I see that. And so ultimately, that's one of those things like I learned how impatient I was, when I first started to trade because I realized I was trying to just get out of, just come from underground, right? It's like being a seed in the soil. You want to break the soil so fast, but now you have to stay in there. It's dark in there, sure, but you got to stay in there. The pressures of life are on you, but you have to stay in there because you don't grow just upwards, right? Like trees go both ways. They grow downwards as well, right? Creating the roots so that they're able to withstand the storms and they grow upwards as well too. But that process starts in the dirt, and so that was one of those things that trading reflected back to me. I was able to see myself more clearly. It's like you're purifying yourself, right? It's like you're going through the crucible, like gold, and you're just being purified, right? And I think one of the things, I don't know if this might have been a scripture or whatnot, but pretty much it was like when right? Like for somebody that's like purifying gold, when or silver, when that it's complete, it's good, is when you can see your reflection in it. And that's the same way God is with us, right? Like when we get to that the point that we're supposed to be in, it's that point where God can see his reflection in us, right? And I think ultimately, like you go through that process of fire with trading, where you're learning, like you see yourself more, and you're able to say, "Oh, I need to fix this. No, I can't rush," and you're able to just learn all of those different things about yourself. And I believe that in life, with everything, there are transferable skills. I'm able to take what I learned from trading now and apply it to real life examples, right? Maybe I might be driving and I need to slow down more and different things like that or being patient with people around me. So ultimately, though, those are the pros. I would say that's a pro as well too. Just being able to allow the work to work on you. That's a benefit, in my opinion. And then the last thing, you become an asset, right? You no longer look for money externally because you become the generator of generational wealth, right? So ultimately, what that means is, I didn't even go over the fear, but those two tie into each other, which is there's less anxiety, right? Because even if somebody comes and takes it all away, you know you have what it takes. You have the capability. It's in you, right? You just need to, okay, just get yourself back together and just get to work. And you know, you generate the asset at that point. So there's less fear moving through life because you can't get fired from your gift, right? Like nobody can lay you off and nobody can take that away from you. They can strip everything else. But ultimately, the skill that's within you, it's not going anywhere. So now you realize that you no longer think about security as something external. You look at it more so like God has given me a gift. So no matter what life throws at me, like I'm going to be just fine. And so, those are the pros ultimately with that. Now, the reason why I'm breaking down foreign exchange is just because that was my intro into trading. And also, the foreign exchange market is the largest financial market in the world, right? The stock market, all combined across the world, they move maybe a couple tens of billions every day is being traded. But in the foreign exchange market, they're trading over $9 trillion every 24 hours, right? As long as the market is open on the weekdays. And so ultimately, that's what differs. Now, you can make money in both markets, right? Because the opportunity is there no matter what. I don't necessarily need all of the 9 trillion that's being traded. Of course, I'm not the only trader, in the market as well. So the bottom line is, no matter what market it is, as long as you're trading, you know what you're doing, you're able to make profit, right? But the foreign exchange market is the largest financial market, in the world. And when I think of markets as well, too, one of the things that I think about is like markets in a literal sense, right? Think about a farmer's market, right? There are differences to it, right? For the stock market, it might be, okay, this is a huge, you know, um, farmers market within the US where people trade goods, right? I'll give you $100 for 100 apples. That's trading going on there. And then look at the foreign exchange market like a global farmers market to where now the people in Georgia, selling peaches, they're selling to people in Nigeria and in Jamaica, you see? So now that's a global market. That's exactly what the foreign exchange market is, right? And the only difference is, what they're trading with each other is like currency. They're able to say, okay, let me get, just like if you go to a foreign country, if you travel to Jamaica or whatnot, I'm sure the currency might be different if I'm not mistaken. But if you go to Jamaica, you have to convert your US dollars with their currency. That's literally all the foreign exchange market is. And there's an exchange rate for that. Just like there's an exchange rate for the euro, right? When you take your US dollars there's an exchange rate between the dollars and the European currency as well. That's all the foreign exchange market is, right? You're pretty much just in the global market and you're exchanging currency. China may say, okay, let's hold a couple US dollars so that we can do business with it, right? And in exchange for that, or Japan, they might say in exchange for that, I'll give you some Japanese yen, right? That's ultimately what it is. And ultimately, the price that you're trading would be whatever the exchange rate is for, those two currencies, right? I might be able to get 10 Japan yen for the price of one US dollar, right? So ultimately, that kind of like simplifies what the foreign exchange market is. Now, for the first time, I put a little, um, joke in there, but there's a huge correlation, right? Currency, right? Current and C, right? And you realize in the market, there are ebbs and flows in the market, right? You have, the market ascending, descending, whatever. And ultimately, it's the same exact thing. And there's a flow because money flows, right? Money is just like current. And so ultimately, like, I'm not surprised it's called currency and that nuance is there because currency flows just like current. So ultimately, that's why, I put that in there. But hopefully that gave a pretty like good understanding to what the foreign exchange market is. Now, next part, I just wanted to add this on to kind of like just drive home the point. Because if you're within the foreign exchange market, you have what you trade. Like I said, remember I said what you're trading in the market, in quote, is currency, right? So it's not apples, right? Like the farmer's market is currency, right? Let me get some of your US dollars. I'll give you some Japanese yen. Let me get some of your euros. I'll give you some US dollar. You're trading currency globally, right? And so ultimately, that is what allows different countries to be able to do business with each other, because in every, economy, you have import and export, right? I might want to hold some, euros because maybe at some point I would want to do some business with them, right? And the people that I'm doing business with might say, okay, we don't want to be paid in US dollars. We want to be paid in euros. And I'll say, okay, but that means I need to get some euros from you, right? Ultimately, like commerce is global, right? We do business, with people that we've never even met all across the world, right? Sometimes we buy certain things from Amazon that wasn't made in the US, right? The people that handle that directly, ultimately, these are things that they had to consider, right? Okay, if I'm doing business with somebody in China, well, what currency do they want, right? If I'm buying something for them, do they want my US dollars? If they do, okay, we need to do some converting, right? So ultimately, that's why it's called foreign exchange, right? You're exchanging with other foreigners globally. And so ultimately, in the foreign exchange market, you have what they call currency pairs. And the reason why is because if what you're trading is currency, then you need to be able to see what the price is for both of them in relation to the other. So 1 euro as a base currency, I mean, yeah, 1 euro is worth 1.0833, US dollars. The price is a lot different now, right? But just based on this image. So that means ultimately the euro has more value than the US dollars. And it does, right? So it takes, you have to spend way more than $1 to get 1 euro, basically, right? You have to spend 1.088833, US dollars to get 1 euro. So ultimately, that's because the base currency is stronger, it's more valuable. And so you have these points in here. And again, I put all of these details in here so that if you were to go back to the slides, you have context as well too. So I'm just going to read through. So foreign exchanges, Forex is always traded in currency pairs. Of course, I went through that. And the value of a currency is strengthening or weakening against the other, right? So based on the way the European economy is doing, right? If they're doing really good, then the value of their currency goes up. So now what that means is I would have to spend more dollars to get 1 euro because the value of their currency went up, right? And so ultimately, if the value of their currency goes down, then now I have to spend less US dollars to get to get one of their euros. So ultimately, that's what it is, right? The strength of both of these currencies, like either a strengthening or weakening based on whatever it is that's going on with their economy. If they're doing good, their currency goes up, right, in value. If they're doing bad, it goes down in value in relation to the other currency. Am I making sense so far? Okay, good. Just let me know if I, lose you at any moment. Um, So the price for a pair equals how much it costs to buy 1 unit, right? I, pretty much went over that as well. You have to spend 1.833 US dollars to get 1 euro. Again, the price is a lot different now in real time, but ultimately this just gives perspective, right? It just shows the euro was more valuable than the US dollar. So it takes more US dollars to get 1 euro. So that's just pretty much it. And then it says you're always buying one currency while selling the other, right? So ultimately, one is doing good compared to the other, basically. So if I'm saying I'm buying That's the thing that might be different with options, right? With options, if I'm not mistaken, they're calls and puts, right? But with the foreign exchange market, it's buying and selling, right? Buy means this is going to go up, right? Sell means this is going to go down. It's just like, I'll give this example, right? Let's go back to the farmer's market example. If I know that the price of apples are about to go up, let's just say hypothetically speaking, I had inside information on that prior to, and I knew, okay, the price of apples are about to go from being $1 to $2. Well, as a business person, what I'll do then is I need to buy as much apples as like humanly possible because I know the price of it is about to double up. So now I buy a bunch of apples so that way, when the price doubles up, now I could sell it for the price of two because I know the value is going to go up. It's just like when you get into a stock, you know, okay, if Tesla is trading at $100, you know, you get in because you're hoping the value of Tesla is going to rise up. Then you can sell the shares for a higher price and you make profit, right? So that's why they use the buy terminology, you know, in foreign exchange. Now, the sell terminology would be, well, if I'm holding 100 apples or a bunch of apples, and I know the price is going to go down from $2 to $1, guess what I'm going to try to do? I'm going to try to sell all of these apples while it's still $2 because I know the price is going down. And so ultimately, when it goes back down to $1, guess what I do? I buy again, right? So that's just pretty much, you know, what it is, how it relates to, you know, let's say the farmer's market versus the foreign exchange. So that's pretty much the same thing. So when you buy, ultimately you're saying, I trust that the price, right, or this currency pair would go up in value. And when you're selling, you're able to, you're basically saying, you know, I'm betting, right, or I'm making the decision that this, the value is going to go down. So if you're right about the value going down, when you hit sell, ultimately you make money off of the value going down. And then when you get into a buy trade, ultimately you make money off of the trade going up as well too. So always think about the farmer's market example, right? If I know the price is going to go up in value, then I need as much of it as I could get, right? I'm going to buy it, right? So me entering the buy trade means I want this to go up. And if it does go up, I make money. Now, same thing with the sell. If I know the price of apples are going to go down, I want to get rid of them. I want to sell as much of it as I can while it's at this high price before it goes down. So when you get into a sell trade, you're saying, I want the value of this asset to go down. And when it does, I profit off of being right about it going down. And I'm able to exit the trade and profit. So that's, you know, the difference between that and the options market. Options market would be calls and puts for, you know, up and down, and the foreign exchange market will be buys and sells for up and down, right? Buy for it going up, sell, you know, for you wanting the market to go down. If it does, you're in profit. Are we still good? Okay, sounds good. All right, so now managing your mind. I wanted to start with this first, right? This is our trading psychology section. So I wanted to, you know, just start off with this, right? Because there's a mindset that you have to go into trading with, right, in order to be successful. So the first thing I have here is treat the market like an ocean, right? Respect the ebbs and flows. So this is also that currency, you know, reference that I made, right? You understand the market, like it never, just like the ocean, it never just pulls back and just keeps going back, right? If you're at the beach and you see the water just going back and never pulls back forward, you probably need to run because there's something wrong. And if you see the water just going towards you and it just keeps, you know, doing that, then you know that there's an issue as well. It says we share simulation of the buy sell in the session. Let's see, Bitcoin is it different futures. So I think it's the pretty much with futures, it'll probably be the same thing. For the most part, there might be a different terminology with, you know, with that, but ultimately I have like a technical analysis section on here. So I'll give an example. It's going to be an image though, as opposed to a simulation, but I think I'll still be able to kind of like just, you know, allow you to see the visual of what that pretty much looks like. Yep. And then with futures, it'd be the same thing too. As long as it is trading, there always going to be, like the buy opportunities and the sell opportunities as well, the up and downs, no matter what. Now, they might have a different terminology, like with options is calls and puts. Futures might have a different terminology as well, or it might be the same, right? Buys and sells. I know we also have commodity as well too, right? You have like gold, for instance, right? A metal. Now, people trade gold also as well, right? You have the same thing. The foreign exchange market, you could trade gold. It's the same thing, buy and sell. But the principle is the same, which is, you have a terminology for you wanting the asset price to go up, and you have it for you wanting it to go down as well. Right. Right. That's it. So, all right. So, yeah, so basically, respecting the ebbs and flows of, the market as well, right? So you understanding the cycles, right? Knowing that the market doesn't just go, just up vertically, forever. It has different cycles, right? It might go like in a wave like pattern, right? And sometimes it might be a zigzag, trending up or trending down, like, but ultimately there always ebbs and flows to the markets, and there ebbs and flows to life. There ebbs and flows to business, right? For instance, you might have like for, institutions, you have times where students are not in session during the summertime and during the wintertime, right? During that moment, they're not receiving any tuition funds. So they have to be able to kind of like plan, around the ebbs and flows of that business that they're in, right? The education business. Same thing, for tourism within the US. People travel to different places, people go to Miami and all of those different places. Those places, they boom more during breaks, right? Whether it be spring break, summertime, and things of that nature, right? But ultimately, when you have a lot of people, whether working or they're in school, then of course you're not going to get as many students flying out and doing all of those tourist things. And so even they have ebbs and flows within their business, right? During the intervals where, it may not be as many people visiting those tourist attractions, they have to also kind of plan for that, right? So with trading, there ebbs and flows as well too, right? There's some days that, like I made reference to earlier, some days may look different, some days may not, right? And so you have to pretty much just plan, for those ebbs and flows as well. Now, more into the psychology, right? One of the things I want to highlight is not diving in without knowing how to swim, right? Like I wouldn't go jump in the ocean if I didn't know how to swim. I maybe start with a pool, but even that, I wouldn't jump in a 10 feet pool if I didn't know how to swim. I maybe go, to the side where maybe my head is still above water. I can kind of walk around. If I feel like I'm drowning and all of that, I can just get up and I'm good, right? So ultimately, and I do that until I can then go into the deep end of the pool. And I practice, and then I might be able to, be in the ocean, right? And actually swim properly. So it's the same thing with trading as well. You don't dive into the ocean without knowing how to swim unless you have a life vest on or something like that, right? Something for the purpose of flotation. So ultimately, you definitely want to just keep that in mind. You want to learn as much as you can before, going all in. Like somebody made a reference one time, they said, if you want to see how deep the water is, don't put both of your legs in there. Put just one, right? Because that way, if you realize it, and you got the other one to pull you back up, right? You're able to say, well, wait, nah, I'm not getting to the bottom. I don't know if there is a bottom, right? And you're able to kind of just scoot over and you're good. So it's pretty much the same thing with trading. Like, you do the exact same thing. It's like if you're trying to see if a water is, hot or not, you might dip one finger in it. If it's the pool, you might just put your hands in it or whatnot just to see, okay, all right, relatively warm. All right, I'm good to get in. So it's the same thing too. You kind of always want to just test the waters like that. If you're not all the way knowledgeable with it, then there's nothing wrong with starting off, with a smaller amount and just working to compound that. And as you get better and better, like you might even not have to add any funds to it if you're able to manage, right? So it might be the same seed capital that you grow to where now you're able to, maybe take some profit off the table here and there. But if you are not that proficient in swimming, in quote, right, as the reference in trading, then ultimately maybe you want to start off smaller, until you're able to work your way up to that point. And then the next thing is not panicking, right? People all like I can teach all of the technical stuff as much as I want. You might be proficient in it as well as you learn. But one thing that is difficult to teach is how do you like keep your nervous system in check, right? For the most part, like when people see red, that check engine like cuts on. And then they feel like, oh no, I don't know what's going on. Their heart is beating super fast and all of that. They're not breathing the way they should, things like that. So ultimately, you want to be able to just manage your emotions. You're going to see red. There's no way around it, right? This is, the market. There are ebbs and flows. You have moments where, the market wants to pull back a little bit. And then, go forward. All of these things you have to be able to keep your emotions in check with, right? And ultimately, that's why, like, I have a book recommendation, for that at the end as well. But mindset is everything, because when it's all said and done, like, we have these meetings, but you have to place those trades for yourself. And when you're in those moments and you're in that room, you're trading and you see red, you need to be able to just breathe, right? And that takes me to the next point, right? Pace yourself, right? Take moments to breathe. Sometimes you don't want to overtrade, right? And you might have moments like to where you have a big day. Maybe you want to take tomorrow off and read the word and learn a lot of different stuff because sometimes the not so best things don't always come from the not so best moments. It comes from the phenomenal moments because we let the high get to our heads, right? We say, oh man, I had a great day. Sure, it might happen again, but you want to be level-headed, right? So basically what I'm, referring to is it's not only crucial to keep yourself in check when you lose. It's more important to keep yourself in check when you win because winning it's a great high, right? And ultimately, you always want to keep yourself in check. And this doesn't just relate to trading. Remember, I said life in general, you're always going to have transferable skills, right? There are going to be so many things you learn from trading that you get to apply in real life. And it's the same thing when you have great moments and people are telling you, oh, you're phenomenal, and you're good, and you're this. You have to keep yourself in check. Don't get big-headed, as they'll say, all right? So ultimately, that's important. When you have moments where maybe you might have taken a bad trade for the day, take a moment to breathe, go outside, go take a walk, reflect, right? Don't beat yourself, up too much, right? Just take a moment to breathe. Take a day off if you need to, right? Or just take some time to do something, that's soothing. And, within that, at some point, you take a moment to reflect and figure out what you could do better tomorrow, right? And then when you win, you want to do the same thing too. But it has to be more intentional about, okay, how do I make sure I'm not going into this, feeling like I'm God and realizing I'm just a man. You always want to have that, those like reminders. I'm just a woman, I'm just a man. You always want to remind yourself of that in those winning moments because some of the most catastrophic things happen after people win because they get so high on the win. And so you always want to just be level-headed, treat the wins and the losses the same way. Take a step back, figure out what did I do well? What can I do better? Same way, right? I was watching a video one time. This man was saying basically, he taught his son when you score a touchdown, you're playing football, like don't celebrate, let other people celebrate it. Train your mind to do it again. And that may be a bit extreme, but I think ultimately the principle behind what he's teaching is like make sure your system is the same. My system is, okay, I scored a touchdown. All right, I want to do it again. I won a championship. I want to do it again. Right. So ultimately, trading just requires you to just take those moments to breathe as needed, both with the wins and the losses, right? Especially the wins though. So that way you're able to, keep it going and do it again. And then also move with the market, don't move against it. And I'll talk more about this as well too, right? You always want to flow with the market. Same thing. This is why I started off with saying treat the market like the ocean because there's so many different similarities. Not diving in if you don't know how to swim, pacing yourself because when you're swimming, you need time to breathe as well. You may be able to hold your breath for a while, but sometimes you need to bring your head above water and breathe. That's why I use that similarity, right? And then also not panicking. I made that reference as well. You don't want to jump into the pool. You already don't know how to swim and you're panicking. No, let the lifeguard save you. Just calm down because you can take him down with you. So you don't want to panic. That's why, I use the ocean reference because every single thing below it relates to, like those principles that you would want to apply if you were in the ocean swimming, right? So moving with the market also relates to that, right? You want to move, with the ocean of the market, right? Move with the currency. And ultimately, it is if you see it going up, like don't get in to a sell. Remember, I said sell is you want it to go down. Always make sure you're flowing with the market because the market is just like the customer. It always knows what's right because that's the person you're selling to. If the customer comes to you and says, I feel like you could tweak this, and all of your customers are saying that, well, they're the ones putting money in your pocket. So ultimately, you want to be considerate about the suggestions that they're giving you because they're the recipient of the gift that you're given. And if they decide not to receive it, then ultimately, you start to have fruits on the tree that get rotten, right? So ultimately, you want to always move with the market and not move against it because the market always knows what is right. So you always want to just find those trends. But again, I'll speak to that in one of the following slides. Now, also don't trade if you're desperate or in a rush to make money. That's also something that's very important to keep in mind as well. You always want to just pace yourself, right? When you're getting a 4-year degree, for instance, you're not thinking, oh, okay, my freshman year, I'm trying to get a full-time job right now. No, you let the 4 years go by. You do your internships, you do your service learning hours, and you do your assignments and all of those things. And so ultimately, it's the same thing. Approach it the same way. This is your education for financial independence, freedom, and generational wealth. So ultimately, if you're building a foundation, you want to take your time. If you got 10-story, building or you building a skyscraper, like the foundation might take more time. The higher you want to build, the more time the foundation takes sometimes. And you have to be willing to put in that time because that's the requirement. If you're building, 1 story, maybe it takes less time, but if you're building a skyscraper, something that's going so high, then you need depth, right? Of knowledge. You need that foundation to be right. And so ultimately, that's also something to consider. And now also, don't trade. I'm only trading when you are calm. All right. Only trade when you're calm and in a good mental state. If you just had an argument with somebody, no, sit out, right? Take the day off. Don't try to trade when you're not mentally in a good spot because again, the market reflects who you are when you approach it. It reflects that back to you. And so ultimately, you just always want to make sure that you're in a good mental state when you approach the market. You don't want to be angry, you don't want to be sad, whatever it is, you want to make sure you're level-headed and you're calm going into the market as well. Now, go into the next slide. My queen might have some she might enjoy this reference right here, but managing your risk. Right? This one is about risk management. So I have a reference in here for healthcare, right? In healthcare, we learn that life is in the blood, right? ultimately in trading, the money is the same thing, right? So you always want to make sure that you don't allow, like, look at your account as the body, right? And you're treating this body and you want this body to be healthy and to grow, right? And think about it, you don't want it to ever be in a critical state to where it's like losing so much blood. And so, it's the same thing, right? Yeah, like, there you go. Exactly. Amen. Amen. There you go. So basically, it's the same exact thing, right? If you have $100 account, you don't want to lose 90. You don't, because that's a lot of blood, right? And what happens when something bleeds out? It dies. You don't want your account to die. You want it to be able to keep, going, because that's the seed that produces fruits. So you always want to make sure, that you manage it properly. Don't let it bleed out, fully, right? I can, like, people donate blood all the time, right? They go, they donate some blood, maybe a pint of blood or whatever case may be. They don't lose their life for that, right? So it shows there's a tolerable amount of blood that we can actually lose. So that's where risk management comes in, right? Even the people handling that understand risk management. They understand, okay, there's a limit now to how much blood we're gonna get out of you, right? And so ultimately it's the same way. You want to kind of approach it that way as well too. You never want your account to completely bleed out. You might take some losses just the same way. I can donate blood and still be good. They might tell me to go get something to eat, hydrate, rest, don't do anything strenuous. Yeah, I do the same thing, right, when it comes to trading. But you want to make sure you don't lose too much blood, right? Allow yourself to donate to the market the acceptable amount. If it's 1 pint, that's it. If it's 10% of your account, 5%, allow yourself to give that up. You get rejuvenated sometimes also by donating blood, right? And so ultimately, out, with the old, in with the new, right? And so ultimately is the same way, because sometimes those little losses, again, there's data in it. So you're able to learn, okay, there's something I need to do better, whatever, and you learn something new. So it's the same way too. Sometimes there's benefit of donating, blood. Same thing too. There's benefit in taking those small losses, because now you're able to keep going, right? Because you allowed yourself to cut, to stop the bleeding, right? And then also you're alive. You can keep going. You can live to fight another day. So that's, the perfect way to approach it, and always only risk a small percentage of your account at a time. So you always want to make sure, like, this is what, makes trading one of those things where it cannot be gambling, because trading is one of the only instances where you can have your predefined risk, right? I can say to myself, okay, I'm willing to lose only 10% of my account. And it takes me to the next point. I can automate that and say there's something called a stop loss, right? I'm sure it might have a different terminology with options, but you can automate these things, right? Take profits and stop losses. Basically, what they mean, is, take profit would be, okay, if my trade gets to a point where I'm in profit $100, close the trade out, so I could take the $100 in profit, right? And it does that automatically. You just set that as you get into the trade. Same thing for the stop loss, right? I'll say, okay, if my account has $100 in it, if I lose my 10%, which is $10, I want the system to automatically close out this losing trade at $10, so I do not lose more than that 10%. So you can automate this, right? When if I'm playing dice with somebody, gambling, on the street, I can't predetermine my risk, right? And I also can't learn how to play dice either. There's no, like, math to that. There's a math with trading. I can learn how to be a better trader. I can learn how to throw the dice to where I hit all sixes or whatnot, right? So that's what differs, right? That's the first thing. Anything that you can learn, and cannot be gambling, because ultimately the losses now become more so a function of the knowledge deficit, right? Outside of luck. That's the first thing. The second thing is, if I could predetermine my risk, also nullifies the gambling aspect as well. Because I can say, this is what I'm willing to risk and set that system in place. So now I lose that 10%, I predefine that risk. So that's the thing. And then with trading also, like outside another difference with that and just investing into stocks in general is once you buy the shares, you're in for a ride. It's just like being on a roller coaster. You have to wait for it to be at the desired point, and hopefully you can exit out that way. But once that ride begins, you're in for a ride, right? But with trading, once you get out of the trade, ultimately, you don't have to worry about, oh, would my account go down? No. You only have to think about that when you're in the trade. It's different with stocks because with stocks, more so you hold it long term, right? So I don't if I get into a trade and I exit out, I no longer have to think, oh, how's my account doing? That's the difference, right? With stocks, you maybe always want to check. Trump might say something not favorable. Market might go down. It might be some wars, rumors of wars, as we hear in the scripture, things like that that affect the market, right? But with trading, once you exit out of your trade, that's it. You no longer have to worry, "Oh, how's my account doing?" You're not in a trade to have to worry about that. So that's also something as well. But it's always very important to utilize those automated systems. Set your take profits and your stop losses. Always have predefined risk. Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's the difference with a lot of different things. I know what I'm willing to risk. I determine that. I told the system I'm only willing to risk 10% of my account on this trade or 5% of my account on this trade. So once I lose that, take me out. I don't want to lose more. I don't want to lose 6%, 5% or $5, that's it, or $50, whatever the predefined risk is. But you want to set those automated systems. So when you have moments to where when things happen fast, maybe news comes out or whatever, you're not worried. Or if you have to walk away and do other things, because that's the point of trading, right? It shouldn't be like a standard job. You should be able to be flexible and say, I want to go on lunch now, all right? And you should be good. If you have those systems already in place, you're able to walk away without panicking. You shouldn't be if you feel afraid when you're trading, something's wrong. But guess what? It's something you can fix also, right? But you should never feel fear when you're trading. Fear is only an indicator, right? Fear is just like pain. When I feel pain, the pain itself is not the problem. No, the pain is an indicator. It's telling me there's something wrong somewhere. If I'm injured and I feel pain, the pain is just telling me, yo, we need to take care of this injury. You have an open wound or whatever case may be, right? Absolutely. Absolutely. So, that's something, to always consider. Like fear is an indicator that there's something wrong, right? And you realize like when you're doing good, you don't feel fear. You don't. When you're making the right choices, you don't feel fear. It's when we're doing bad or we're doing something we're not supposed to, that's when we feel afraid. Oh, I hope nobody sees me, right? So when you feel fear when trading, it's always because there's something that you're supposed to be doing that you're not, or there's something that you're doing that you're not supposed to be doing. Either or. So you shouldn't ever feel afraid when you're trading, right? If I have a predetermined risk, like 10%, 5% or whatnot, and I also have set my automated systems and I know what I'm willing to risk and I know it won't be the end. I'll still be able to trade properly. Even if I lose that amount, why would I be afraid to get into a trade? I wouldn't because there's nothing wrong. I know the math. The math says, okay, I can handle being able to take that loss and still I'll be able to trade tomorrow because I'm not losing everything. So if I know the math in that sense, why would I be afraid? So you always have to address that, right? And fear is not all the way bad. Again, it's an indicator that something is wrong. And once you fix it, you're good. The fear disappears. So you just always have to address that indicator and listen to all of those things when you feel like your nervous system is like telling you like, yo, there's something wrong. When you feel that fear, you need to ask yourself, okay, well, let's reset. Right? What is it that I need to be doing that I'm not? what did I do wrong? Did I over leverage my account? Am I risking more than I can actually, handle? Things like that. Did I follow my trading systems? Right? Is this an A+ setup? Or am I just doing this just because of fear of missing out? Right? All of those things we have to, just think about. So the last point is the goal is to stay in the game long enough to see big wins, right? That's it. When you're able to, just have those predetermined risks and take those small losses, exactly, FOMO, and take those small losses, if needed, then you're able to survive the game, right? It's like being in a storm, right? No matter what. That's why I said survive the storm to see the sun, because sometimes you have those moments. But no matter what, like you don't, you're not supposed to feel like when you're experiencing the storm that it will just stay forever. Nah, it comes to pass. Right? It comes to pass. It's here to pass through. Right? And so ultimately it's not there to last. So when you have a bad, trading moment, trade hit your stop loss or whatnot, that's a storm. It comes to pass. You're able to withstand the storm now because you have the appropriate systems in place. You have your stop loss predetermined and all of those things. So ultimately, you don't fear the storm when it comes if you're in a fortified house. So those systems are your fortified, they're your fortification, right? In trading terms, right? Outside of prayer and just faith and things of that nature. So ultimately, your systems matter a whole lot. And those are the things that help you withstand the storms when they come. So ultimately, that's why I have that point, survive the storm to see the sun. Have to be willing to say, I'm willing to take a small loss so that way I can live to trade another day. I can live to fight another day. I can stop this bleeding right here. Right? And I'm good to go for the next day. Heal up, figure out what can we do better, and we go at it again. So that's my 2 cents on managing your risk management. So now knowing what to do. So there are two
Sorry, babe.
types of
I didn't mean to interrupt. We have a question in the chat.
oh, okay. You set out to the same way we set that. Yes. So it's the same exact system, right? So it's the same exact system. I believe options should have the same thing as well too. But it's the same system. And what you want to do also is you want to set that while you're getting into the trade. Right? That's one of the things that I try to do, which is like you're setting all of those things right then, right? Because the take profit is your target. And the stop loss is this is the amount that I'm willing to be down before I want the system to automatically close the trade. So when you set your predetermined target, right, you also want to have the predetermined loss, if need be, set as well as you're entering the trade. That's the best way to do it. So, so that way, ultimately, you can like it should be set up to where as soon as you enter the trade, with all of those systems, you can literally walk away from it and know that you're good to go because you set those systems, you put those systems in place. So, oh, okay. Got you. So with futures, I know more than likely you can definitely do that for sure. Because futures, in metals and forex, they're all like very similar for the most part. So yes, I believe you should be able to do that as well. All of the different markets, like they're all designed to where they have these systems, right, for people. It's just sometimes people don't take advantage of it, right? But it's important too, because those are the things that the people that are successful, take advantage of. You need to know your predetermined risk because that's what differentiates it, right? This is not a casino, like you need to know this is what I'm willing to risk. Because now once you set everything, all your systems getting into the trade, you don't have a reason to be afraid because you made the decision that this is what I'm okay with losing if need be. So ultimately now, once you set that, no matter what, you're able to have some level of confidence because In the worst case scenario, you're not losing the whole account. You're not completely bleeding out. It's just a pint of blood. That's it. That you're donated. That's it, right? And so ultimately, you always want to just, set those going into the trade. So now going into like analysis, right? Market analysis, there are two main types, right? You also have sentimental, but these are the two key forms of analysis. So the first one is, well, actually, I'll go over fundamental first. So with fundamentals is just studying like news, right? To say the least. You're studying what, news are coming out, things that affect the asset, the currency, whatever the case may be, right? So it's just economics for the most part. You have just like, for instance, with stocks, as a shareholder, you have, like there's an obligation for the business owners to reveal how the company is performing, right? You have like news comes out on earnings to show, okay, Apple made this amount last month or this quarter, right? Or Tesla made this amount this quarter. Now, what that does is it gives you the opportunity as an investor to say, they made less money last quarter. Well, I want to sell on my shares because I don't like the trend that this is going in, right? Or oh, they made earnings, right? So they made more than they didn't lose money for the quarter. They made more money. So ultimately, okay, they're doing good. Okay, I'm good. I'm still on board. I don't want to sell my shares. As a matter of fact, I'll buy more because I see that there's a trend of them doing really well quarter to quarter. So it's the same thing too with the country as a whole. We're the shareholders, right? The government is obligated to tell us how the economy of this country is, right? Is doing. So ultimately, that's why you have economic data, right? You have unemployment news, right? To see, well, how many people claimed unemployment this quarter, right? Or this or last month. So you can see, that means we didn't really perform well when it comes to that last month as a country. You see the GDP, right? You also see things like interest rates, for instance. You see, okay, the government might say, or the Fed, which is the Federal Reserve, might say, okay, we're raising interest rates. So now you're able to see all of those things that are going on and make a decision based off of that, right? Based off how it affects what you're trading. So if you're trading, what's a asset that you would say that you trade the most with futures? Oh, I think you're muted.
Gold,
Gold. Perfect.
S&P,
Perfect.
Russell.
Okay.
Um,
Gotcha.
let's see. I would have to look at it just
Silver.
to
No,
see
that's
what I can
fine.
think
Gold
of.
is that's a perfect, example in itself. So gold, for instance, right? So now this will be my example when it comes to fundamental analysis. So interest rate data, right? That's economic data. So if the, Federal Reserve, who are the people in charge of, whether cutting interest rates or not, if they say, okay, we're going to cut interest rates. So ultimately, what that means is you start to realize that with a lot of things, they're domino effects, right? And you're only looking at fundamental analysis from the perspective of how does this affect me? Because that's all really that matters at the end of the day, right? Like these things affect a lot of different things. But as a trader, you're looking and you're saying, how does this affect me right now? Right? How does this affect what I trade also? So now you say, okay, cool. I trade gold, right? If I trade gold and there's this economic data just came out, right? The interest rate saying that they're cutting interest rates. Okay, well, what does that mean in relation to me trading gold? Ultimately, what that means is, so we'll reverse engineer it, right? Interest rate, news came out. they decided they're cutting interest rates. Well, what does that mean? This is me now in my research mode, right? And you have to be like this, as a trader, you always want to learn, what does this mean in correlation to me, right? So this is how I think. I'll walk you through, how I kind of think through the process. So I would say, okay, the Federal Reserve just cut interest rates, all right? Okay, cool. What happens next? What happens next is, well, what does that mean first, right? Cutting interest rates mean they're making it cost less money for people to borrow. That's all that means, right? Because if the banks now have to adhere to the federal rate, basically what they're doing is saying, okay, well, if interest rates used to be 10% on every dollar you borrowed, now you can borrow whatever amount you want, and we're only going to charge you 5% on interest. So now what that means is people are going to be more inclined to borrow money since interest rates are going down. So now what does that mean for me? Again, you're still thinking about that. That's the thought process. That's where you're going. What does that mean for me? Okay, well, if they cut interest rates, and ultimately that means that it's going to be cheaper to borrow money, that means more people are going to borrow. There's going to be an influx of people borrowing money because it's cheaper for them to do so. They pay less in interest now than they did prior to the news coming out to borrow money. So what that means ultimately is there's going to be more money in circulation all around the country. So now if there's more money in circulation, that means people are going to have more money to buy different things, right? Spend money on different things that they wanted to spend money on. So what does that mean for businesses in the US? It means that businesses are going to do better because now people are no longer being stingy with their money. They're no longer being conservative because in their minds, they're thinking, I could borrow a whole lot more money at less interest. So now guess what? Sam down the street borrows $1,000. Guess what he does? Well, he pays his bills or whatever, right? But then he goes and buys the new outfit that he wants at that local business. What does that do for the economy? The economy does, better because ultimately now people have more money to put back into these businesses. Now, guess what? If the businesses are doing better because now consumers have more money, ultimately, guess what happens to stocks? Stocks perform better because stocks are simply like literally like a representation of how the company is doing. So if the business is doing well, if Apple made more money, the stock would most likely go up. So now Apple stock is going up. So now again, what does that mean for me? Because again, that's the point. That's where I'm getting at. But I just have to peel back layers like an onion. I have to peel back layers to get to, the meat, right? I'm cutting all of the fat out. So now ultimately my thought process then becomes, well, what happens to gold if stocks are doing well? Huh. Ultimately, I know gold doesn't pay dividends. Stocks pay dividends, right? So if people have the choice now to either invest into stocks or gold, and they have a lot more money now, they would probably invest into stocks because gold makes money one way, appreciation. Stocks makes money two ways, appreciation and dividends. So now I can buy more of these shares. So now I get paid more in dividends and the stock is going up anyways. So now I make money off of the appreciation and I make money off of dividends. So now I go back to where I started, which is what does this mean? It means ultimately that if interest rate news comes out, stocks are going to go up. People are going to have more money to invest, basically. Because, and even if they don't invest into stocks, they're going to spend money at their local businesses, right? And if they spend money in the businesses, stocks go up because stocks are tied to businesses. And so if stocks go up as an investor, I know I get a better ROI off of investing into stocks now than I get off of investing into gold because I can get the appreciation aspect of it and I also get paid more dividends. And now I'm buying more stocks. So I'm getting paid more in dividends and the stock is going up because I already know people are buying this stock and people are investing into this company. They're buying these iPhones And ultimately, now I can make money two ways. That is something gold does not give me. So again, what does this mean for me? It means if they cut interest rates, more than likely, gold might go down. You see, it may not do so immediately, but there's a high chance of gold going down because gold is an asset. And as investors, we always look to see where can we get the highest ROI for our money. It's going to be stocks because you make money off of those two ways, right? So now I look at the economic data from that perspective. I'm thinking, how does this relate to me? So now as a gold trader, I'm thinking, well, if they cut interest rates, eventually there's going to be a domino effect that ultimately translates to gold going down because it's no longer the preferred asset. Boom. That's how I approach fundamental analysis. That's it. Now it's the same thing too when wars happen, right? When wars happen, sometimes people invest into stocks, that, produce armory because they know at war, people are going to need, guns and all of these different things. And all of these things that, tie into security or just war in general, they're going to go up now because people are going to need to spend money on that. The government is going to put money into getting what they need in order to be able to properly be equipped for the war. So now, same thing. I wouldn't necessarily invest that way because war is not necessarily a good thing. So I don't really want to make money that way. Same thing too, when COVID happened. You had Johnson and Johnson make a lot of money. That wasn't by happenstance. It was because a lot of people had to get those vaccines. And so now, if a lot of people are getting these vaccines because of this global crisis, guess what? The business that they're getting the vaccines from, they go up. Therefore, their stocks go up. So a lot of people made money through that. It might not be the most optimal way because people died from COVID or whatnot, but that just, to each his own with that, right? But the bottom line is that's, the way these things affect each other. Yes, ma'am.
So my question is, because this is so
Mhm.
good, I do want to say
Yes,
this
ma'am.
is amazing, and
Hmm.
I am learning so much today. Very, very helpful.
Right,
So what I heard you say, which ties into my core belief systems from an ethics perspective,
right,
because I also heard you in your teaching right now about the technical analysis and then the fundamental analysis, and
right,
that equally ties into sentiment. And
right.
our sentiment ties into our core belief systems. And
Absolutely.
so, I love how you are breaking it down and changing my optics and equally giving me a sense of freedom to be able to say I don't have to go against my core belief systems on my
Not at
moral
all.
compass if I
Right.
feel like war is not something that benefits and it's
Absolutely.
not for the greater good.
Then
I'm
you're going
not
to invest
going
in
to,
war.
for the sake of greed, invest in oil.
Exactly.
If I
Exactly.
feel like, you know, what is it, vaccines,
Right.
there may be some that are beneficial, there may be some that are not. And I'm going
Right.
to lean in that direction. I'm not going to
Right.
invest in those things because just for the sake of making
Exactly.
money. So it's
Exactly.
leveraging those things, it's balancing those things
Mhm.
out and seeing, am I going to be able to sleep at night?
Right. Absolutely.
And when I'm doing this, because ultimately the things that I invest in and where I put my money
Hmm.
also affects my family and
Right.
generations to come. So
Right.
it's all of those things that it's so amazing, and I have been doing all just to not,
Hmm.
jump in. But I want to say this
Right.
is really wonderful.
Yes,
So
ma'am. Thank
thank
you.
you.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. So, all of those things, like you said, you don't have to compromise your core beliefs at all because and like in any marketplace, there's abundance. Like there shouldn't have to be a fear of missing out of Johnson and Johnson stock doing good. No, there's something else that may have been more positive to invest into, right? Like Zoom stock went up during COVID. Why? Because people had to use Zoom. We had to still meet and fellowship with each other. So though we couldn't meet in person because everybody would just be wearing masks and I can't even give you a hug or shake your hand. But ultimately, we still got that by way of Zoom. That's why we're on Zoom even right now. Teams, same thing. So people made profit off of Zoom, and that wasn't negative, right? Zoom, from my perspective, was relatively positive because it allowed people to still be able to get together even in the midst of all of that. So I think ultimately like that was also an option, but with investing, it should never be anything that you have to compromise yourself in because there are plenty of opportunities, if you're looking plenty. So is those opportunities that align with you are always going to be there. And gold is amazing. That's like the more real form of money than what we have now. I can't do anything with, crypto per se and all of that. Like I can't hold that in my hands. So though I'm not bashing crypto, crypto is nice too, but I'm just saying like trade, being a gold trader, like that's positive. There's nothing negative about that. And so, but yeah, now that I know that you trade gold, I'm gonna, try to make some gold references as well. But that's not that different either, too, like with currencies as well, right? Gold is something, actually within the foreign exchange market that's like very, like well known, right? Like a lot of huge traders within the market like trade gold. So that's really good. So, but yeah, so that's how I would approach fundamental analysis, though. It's always just peeling back layers and asking myself, well, what does this mean for me? Right? Okay, unemployment news came out. It was bad, right? Okay, that means the US dollar, like the economy might not be doing so well, right? Or there's inflation, all of these different things. Well, if the US dollar is not doing so well, what does that mean for me? What does that mean for gold? Same thing. Like gold, the symbol for gold is XAUUSD, right? The AU is the whole like science, that's where they derived that, from. But I know Justin know what I'm talking about. But anyways, that's where that comes from. But it's attached to the US dollar, right? That's the same thing too. So I'm sure you probably understood the Euro USD reference because now the price of gold is what's the price of gold based on the dollar, right? That's why you see gold might be at right now, it's probably around like 4,000, 3,000 ish, right? It peaked at 5,000 at some point around this year, but you'll see, so it just shows, okay, a ounce of gold or a kilo of gold, is worth this, probably an ounce, right? So you see, is the price of gold that you're trading is in comparison to how many dollars you need to get it. So that's where that price comes from, right? If they're going by ounce, which I assume it is, it would be what is the price of an ounce of gold in dollars? That's why it's 3,000, right? Or around that 4,000. So it's the same thing too with, currency pairs like Euro USD is what is the price of, euro in comparison to the US dollar? How much US dollar does it take for me to get 1 euro? It's the same thing. How much US dollar does it take for me to buy 1 ounce of gold? So it's the same thing, but back to fundamental analysis. One rule of thumb is to always be aware, right? Especially when you're getting into a trade, like gold is very volatile, very, right? Because gold is a global asset. It's huge, right? And so there are always like different things that can move it, right? If there's a war that happens, you see that, right? And also gold is a safe haven for most people. Whenever there's uncertainty in the market, gold goes up, right? And so you see all of those like different factors, right? And you just learn to think about, okay, if this news came out, what does this news mean for me as a gold trader? How does this news impact gold, right? If there's war, that's uncertainty because war spills over, right? Like people might have to pick sides. This might become big, right? We don't want another world war. So people start to think like that. And so ultimately, when those things happen, what does that mean? The price of gold goes up because there's more uncertainty now globally, right? And so that's, literally like fundamental analysis summed up. It's thinking about economic data like interest rates and, CPI, like, inflation, you know, interest rates, looking at all of those different news and saying to yourself, how does this news, right, even of wars and all of those different things, how does this news impact the price of gold? Right? Or the direction that gold is going in. So now, once you know that, now you know, okay, cool, right? They got some stuff going on, at the Strait of Hormuz, right? Okay, cool. Some uncertainty. Gold might go up, right? If there's some news that comes out and then it says Iran and the US has decided to sign, something and they're gonna come to an agreement, then guess what? Less uncertainty. Gold goes down, right? Because if there's less uncertainty, people say, well, I no longer have to be conservative or be safe. I can now, kind of like take on more risks since I know like there's not that much uncertainty anymore. So now they say, okay, well, I'll sell my gold again to sell. I'll sell my gold, right? Because I know gold is going to go down and I'm going to put my money towards more things that give me an ROI, right? So that's how I approach fundamental analysis. So always make sure that you're aware of news before you get into any trade. I'll show you. Oh, I have this on the screen, right? So Forex Factory, right? That link, when you go on there, it shows literally all of the planned news, the scheduled news that comes out, right? So I don't know, maybe you might have already been using this or something similar for news, but it basically like it shows like all of the news on interest rates, unemployment claims, all of the different things, inflation, all of the different news. It shows you when it's going to come out. You're going to see a lot of them at 8:30 a.m., right? It shows you when it's going to come out. You see red folders mean that they're super, important. Orange, relatively important, still move the market. Yellow, not so important, right? But ultimately, every single day, I encourage you to always like find a platform, even if you don't use this. I think this one's really good. But if it is this, you just go on the platform and see, okay, what news is coming out today? And how does this news affect me? Right. And so if there's news coming out on Euro, for instance, or on the yen, and 9 times out of 10, like, that might not necessarily impact the gold, then maybe you're fine. Maybe you just slightly pay attention to it to see maybe if it moves the market. But you see the US market is like it's huge. It's very pivotal to a lot of things, right? A lot of different markets, especially the foreign exchange and the stock market revolves around the US. So if there's news coming out for the US and it's important, it's going to impact gold for sure. So you always want to just make sure you're aware of that. So I always go to the Forex Factory, right? Always. That's why I put this on here and recommended this because this is my go-to right here because it has everything. And as a matter of fact, when they have news that is not planned that comes out, they upload it on here as well too, right? So when I start to see the market make like crazy erratic moves, automatically I just go in here because in my mind I'm thinking, oh, something came out, right? That most likely wasn't planned because if it was planned, I would know. So if I see the market just moving in a crazy, manner, then I know maybe Trump said something. Of course, they don't plan those things, right? He could just release a tweet. So when he tweets, even those, it'll pop up on the app, on the website to show this is something major that just came out, wasn't planned, that is currently moving the market. And I'm able to see and say, oh, okay, makes sense, right? But this is a major platform, especially since you trade gold. I think you can get everything that you need from here for sure. Because it shows everything like with US and all of that. Okay, got you. I look at this as well too. Um, yeah, I look at Forest Factory as well, and I pay attention to every news. Yes, you can, yeah, definitely. I pay attention to every news that has to do with both. the US and the euro, especially, right? Because I trade euro US dollar. Because euro US dollar is the number one currency pair that's traded amongst traders in the world, right? So I trade that. Um, but with gold, you can pay attention mainly to the US dollar. You can pay attention to euro here and there, but the dollar would be something that's like pivotal for you to always like, pay attention to when it comes to news. The euro might not affect gold like that. The only reason why I watch both euro and dollars because I trade their currency pairs, right? So that's the only reason why. If I trade a gold, I'll probably pay attention more towards the US dollar news mainly, right? So, but every news that has a red folder maybe impacts the market for the most part. But I would say the US dollar trumps pretty much everything, you know. So, but Forex Factory is a good place to look at every morning that you decide to trade. Before you trade, I would suggest going on Forex Factory and looking at all of the news folders for the day. If you see red or orange, be mindful. Don't be in a trade prior to it coming out, right? And after it comes out, just give some time for the dust to settle, and then you can get into the trade. But you always like that should be like a rule of thumb. Like before you even open the charts, you want to go straight here to see to do your fundamental analysis to see if nothing's coming out, then you're fine. Technical analysis will probably just trump everything if there's nothing fundamentally coming out. But if there's news coming out, you want to look at it and say, okay, important news is coming out at 8:30. If I'm in a trade, I need to exit prior to because there's going to be a lot of volatility. You don't want to be, caught in that because with news, it moves the market so much that if you're right, well, let me start with the bad. If you're wrong, it's bad, right? If it's bad, it's bad if you're in the wrong trade. If you're right and it's good, it's great. That's the best way to put it because it moves the market so much, it like it like lays emphasis on whatever the direction is. So if you're right, you're really right. But if you're wrong, you're really wrong. So I try to avoid like trading news, because for the most part, the market is relatively stable outside of the noise. You'll notice that. Like the most of the time that you see the crazy moves is normally around like news coming out. That's when the market like really moves like that. So moments like that, like you just want to be mindful, like you can still profit from it, but it doesn't have to be like right there and then, right? So I always encourage before news comes out, don't be in any trades. After it comes out, wait till the dust settles and then you get in because then there's less noise, less manipulation or anything, and you're able to kind of like just get into a steady trade. So that leads me to technical analysis. So technical analysis is pretty much the study of like the price charts, right? So I'm sure by now you're starting to like see certain patterns in the market and everything. You're starting to be more familiar, with certain, patterns in the markets or whatnot. Those are the things that kind of give you some insight on what you think the market is going to do, right? You start to see trends. You can look at the market now and say, like this asset, gold, has relatively gone up over this period of time, right? Or is relatively going down, it's been trending down over this period of time. So that's really what technical analysis is looking at the price action and being able to say, okay, I can tell you where the market is trending towards, right? And so in the market, you have three states. You have the trend upwards, trend downwards, and then you have what they call consolidation, right? Or you could also say ranging, which is staying within like a particular area, right? So it's kind of like if you like look around right now, right, being in the house, you have the floor, right? Legs on the floor, and then you have the ceiling. If you jumped as high as you possibly could and succeeded in hitting the ceiling, you would probably have a reaction, which is, I got to go back now. I can't break through, right? My skull is not equipped to break through the ceiling, right? So that's the range. It's like if you bounce the basketball on the ground inside, you have it, hit the ground, hit the ceiling, come down, and just does that until it fades out or something, right? If it was strong enough, at some point it'll break through a particular area. If it does, then that means it's trending towards that direction. So it's either going up, down, or sideways. That's it, right? So that's pretty much it. So rule of thumb also for technical analysis, I would say, is to always start with the higher time frame, right? It might not be the 1 hour. I suggested that depending on how long, like the time frames you look at depends on how long you want to be in a trade for. For me, I like my daily bread. Right. So I think I fall into the day trader, aspect. Swing traders are more longer term, and then you have position traders way longer. Like they get into trades like they're holding stocks and they in it for months sometimes, right? And they just hold it. Like some people get into gold, right? And they're like position traders with gold. Some people got into gold around the 3,000 area and held it all the way to 5,000, and it took months to get there. Swing traders, maybe a few weeks or whatnot, if it comes down to it, or a few days, right? Um, but day traders more so you enter, exit the trade within the same day. So I always encourage the time frame that you use while trading should be dependent on how long you want to be in the trade for. And the reason why I say that is if you're in the daily time frame, if like, by studying the charts, every candle represents one day on the daily time frame. On the 1 hour time frame, every candle represents one, hour. So patterns and structures take longer to form on higher time frames, right? If I wanted to see, like a zigzag form or something on a daily time frame, that would have to take a couple of days for it to do the zigzag, right? Or do the wave or whatnot, right? So, but if I go in the hourly time frame, that'll take maybe a couple of hours. Now, the hours might roll into days, but I know it's like it could take just hours for that to like actually, like actualize. But for the daily time frame, the moves take days to create the structure. So you're going to be in trades for days, and sometimes days might roll into weeks. Now, if you go on the hourly time frame, hours might roll into, the whole day, right? Or maybe a few days. So the lower the time frame is, the shorter the time period you would like to be in the trade. And the higher the time frame is, the higher the time period you'd like to be in the trade as well, generally, right? Because again, daily time frame, right? On the daily time frame, you see moves that took days to form, sometimes weeks. So the hourly is the same thing. The minute time frame takes minutes to sometimes hours to form, based on what you want to see. So I think the time frame that you decide to use comes down to what type of trader you want to be, right? So you have to figure out what trader identity you want to adopt, basically. For me, I like day trading because I like compounding, right? I don't need to catch a whole move or to have this, major move within a day or within, the week or whatever. I don't mind getting my, couple percent for the day. Boom, I'm good. Do the same thing tomorrow. And before you know it, for the whole month, I'm good. I hit whatever my target is. So I don't mind that. Plus, I have time. For people that may not have that much time to trade every single day, they might have to do something differently, right? They might have to hold gold, for it to hit another key level, right? Because they don't have time to, trade every day. Some people are trading and working at the same time. So they may not have time to day trade, right? For me, I have the time. That's why I'm choosing to do that, but it varies for everybody. Everybody has to choose what trader identity they would like to adopt. So ultimately for day trading, you can either start off with the 4 hour or the 1 hour. I would just say stay within the hourly, right? Because again, like I said, sometimes hours roll into day or days, right? So if you want to get out of the trade within the day, then you want to make sure the time frame you're looking at, you can catch a move on there that gets to your target before that time frame is up. So that's just pretty much it. So if I want to trade within the day, maybe I'll look at the 4 hour time frame, right? To start off, or the 1 hour. And basically the reason why I said start off at the higher time frame is because the moves take longer to like to show up on the higher time frame, they also hold for longer periods. And they're also more credible. It's like look at it like this, right? Your time frames are your sources. The higher the time frame, the more credible the source is, right? So if you have a higher time frame structure and you're saying based on this, I see a trend that gold is going up on this higher time frame. That holds more than for the lower time frame because it took a long time for that trend to form and become a trend. So it's just like anything. It's like if you marinate your food, right, it tastes better if you let it marinate. But if you microwave it, it might still come out okay, right? But the food is a lot better when you take your time with it. It's like the foundation. So it's the same thing with higher time frames, right? It went through the marination process. And so therefore it's better because now whatever it's saying it wants to do, it means it. It's not just going to change its mind. The market changes its mind more on the lower time frames, right? You have more, up, down, erratic moves, but on the higher time frames, it respects structure. So that's also something to keep in mind. That's why you do something called top-down analysis. And so top-down analysis is you start from higher time frames and you scale into lower time frames, right? So you create your overall directional bias on the higher time frame, and then you move into your lower time frame to get a good entry, right? Because you can see, like on the lower time frame, you can see based on the structure there when it's ready to go. I'll give an example, and I thought about this when I was driving, and I'm so glad I remembered it. I thought about this when I was driving yesterday, and I was like, I have to share this, right? So, perfect example, right? Look at the when it comes to time frames, look at it this way, right? Think about it. If I say, okay, you're flying, right, to the Bahamas. You're flying to the Bahamas, and I buy the ticket, but I tell you, your flight is going to leave sometime today. You'll be like, okay, there's data in that because I know sometime today I am going to take flight. Cool. Now, if I tell you that you're going to prepare around that, right? Days leading up to that, you have the appropriate information, at least enough information, right? Days leading up to that, because well, I'm flying. I don't know the time, but I know the day. And I know the day is not today, but I know on Thursday, Tess said, right? Or I was told that I'm taking flight on Thursday. Cool. That's your higher time frame, right? Your lower time frame is if I tell you your flight is leaving in an hour from now. So be at the airport. Now you know, I have to take flight Thursday, right? Or I say it's leaving within 10 to 12 noon, 10 a.m. to 12 noon. Now you got more data. Now you know, okay, I'm leaving within the 2 hours. I don't know when, but at least if I get to the airport within those 2 hours, I know I'm good, right? Now, if I scale down to a lower time frame, whatever it is, I'm not saying anyone specifically. When I scale down to a lower time frame, now the information becomes, well, your flight leaves at 9:30. See the difference? It's like the higher time frame lets you know generally that you're going to take flight. The lower time frames let you know specifically. when your plane is ready to take off. So when you're approaching, technical analysis, you look at the higher time frame to see, okay, what day is my flight? And you plan, you pack, get your hair done, whatever it is you need to do, to be prepared. You do that day, prior to that day. When the day comes, right, and you see that structure and you see it's credible, I'm definitely fine today, then you scale down to that lower time frame and you get more information on when exactly, when is the exact moment, right, or as close as possible, right, that this flight is going to take off. And now you make an informed decision based off of that. So that's why you do a top-down analysis like that, right? So okay, within the day, this will happen. Cool, right? Okay, now let me scale down even more because I want to get there. Like for me, I want to get on the plane right before it takes off. I don't want to be on the plane for a whole day. No. Why? Why would I? That's just mental stress. Now I have to get up, stretch my legs because this is slightly uncomfortable. Unless I'm flying first class, I got more wiggle room. But even that, even if I'm flying first class, I still don't want to be on this plane a day before. I don't. I want to get on this plane minutes before we take off, right? So it's the same thing too with time frames and in technical analysis. Yes, you know when your flight is, you know what day it is, you know it's going to take flight today, right? But I don't want to get to the airport 5 hours early. No. If I'm flying international, maybe, but I'm not. I'm just going to Atlanta right there, right? So I want to be on that plane, board that plane a few minutes before, because then there's less drawback, right? Less friction. I don't have to feel like I've been sitting down for too long. I'm stressed, it's cluttered and all of that. No, it's the same thing with trading as well too. You want to be able to like have a sniper entry if you can. So would you say it's it's great. That's what I would say. Looking at the small time frames is great in correlation to looking at the high time frame. So you can't have one without the other, right? Because if I tell you, okay, your flight is taking off at 9:30 a.m. Now you're gonna ask me, well, what day? Right? What day? So you don't know that information, but you need to know what day is taking off, right? And then the specific time as well. So you need both the higher and the lower time frame in correlation to each other. And now more than anything, you need both of them to agree with each other, right? So if you see the market trending up on the higher time frame, you go on the lower time frame and you find it, right? You know it's about to take off on the higher time frame. Cool. Now you go on the lower time frame to really figure out when you want to board that plane. And as soon as you see that it's boarding time, maybe a few minutes before the plane takes off, you get on the plane and you take flight with it. That's how you want to approach the market. But you need both of them. You need the higher time frame to show you where the market is going, right? And when generally is going to go there. Then you need the lower time frame to save you the stress of not getting on the plane too early. Because if you get in too early, now it's unnecessary stress, right? You want to get on right as it's taking off. Yes, ma'am.
All right. So my question is,
Mhm.
and I'm telling you, the way you are describing this top-down analysis, I have been just squinting like the little emoji with the glasses on. It's like, like what? And like the thoughts, like, huh? The way you describe this, and have explained and have broken down this top-down analysis is just like the light bulb has come on.
Yes, ma'am.
and and I think because when you learn, repetition produces
Right,
learning, and then as you're learning, you then
right,
start to understand. And
right,
so the ground has like the seeds are like coming up right now,
right.
because it, like you said in the beginning, it takes time to understand it and keep
Absolutely.
on learning, keep on thinking, keep on,
Right.
hearing what's being said, and then finally it will break that ground and the light bulb comes on. The
Right.
way you are explaining it is so good as well, because now I hear and understand what's being communicated to me in other
Right.
ways it's been taught, and it's been,
Right.
I'm starting to get it. So my question then with that is, when you speak to the top down analysis, is the higher time frames,
Yes, ma'am.
which are trusted, like tried
Right.
and true, like they're more
Right.
respected. The higher time
Right.
frame is more respected. The
Right.
lower time frame is loses respect.
Right.
But equally, you then know when to get in that trade.
Right. Because
So
sometimes they're right.
sometimes,
Yeah. And when they're
right?
right, that it makes like they're right when they agree with the credible source. If they don't agree with the credible source, they're wrong. They're
Which is the
only
higher
right
time frame.
with them. Yes, ma'am. With the high, which is the higher time frame.
Okay. So with that said,
Hmm.
so when you are preparing and you're doing your top down analysis, and because the first thing you've done is you've looked at your news, you've done your fundamental
There you
analysis.
go. Yes,
So
ma'am.
you're prepping for the day, and so you have a track that you're on, and you
Yes,
have a system that you're working,
yes, ma'am.
and you're taking the stress off because you've already set some guardrails and things in place.
Right.
Okay, so you know that you've checked your news, you know what you're gonna do next. So your fundamental analysis, and now you're going
Right.
into your technical analysis, where you are marking up your charts. So
Right.
what I've heard you say is, um, the respect on the um, higher time frame,
Right.
that top up and then down. So
Right.
do you use, because I also heard you say that you don't typically get in and say that I'm gonna do the day. Even though you
Right.
set your guardrails in place, your stop loss, your take profit, but you don't just get in there and leave it.
Right.
I hear you saying, and I'm echoing back to you and mirroring back what you said, so I make sure that I understand properly.
Yes, ma'am.
That say you've already marked up your choice, you've done everything, and you're ready to go
Right.
for this flight. That was so good.
Right.
I love that. So you're ready to take flight, right?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
you know that it's going to leave. You've already prepared. You're at the airport. You're at the gate now.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, do you do that based on an hour's time frame, or so before leaving for the day? Meaning, do you go in like earlier before the market opens, and then you go and check like 4 hour, then you
Mm.
move to 1 hour, then you go to 30 minutes, then you
Right.
go to 15 minutes, then you go
Right.
to five, then you go to
Right.
2 minutes and one? What does that look like for you methodically? How do
Right.
you do that before you
Got
enter that trade and take
got
off?
got you. So sometimes what I do as well too, like, is I always like even when I'm closing for the day, I can always, kind of scale out, go to the higher time frame, look at it, and see and say, this is my bias for tomorrow. Right? Now I'm gonna see more structure, as time goes on, but ultimately, like just based off of where like market closes for the day, I can kind of look at it and say, yeah, I believe this is gonna, most likely happen. Now, I still run the same thing the next day, right? Like earlier in the morning, before market opens, sometimes I still like kind of just open the charts and now look and say, okay, what do I see now? Because sometimes you might see like what you see might differ, right, with time or with more like information. Because for instance, right, for the foreign exchange market during the week, it closes at 5 and then it opens back up, at 6. So it closes literally just for an hour. And then all throughout the night, the market is still moving. So I may look at it at the end of the day and say, okay, this is my bias for tomorrow. But it's moved. It hasn't stopped. It only stopped moving for that hour, and it kept moving all till what we call the New York session. New York session is just 8 to 4, right? That's where the most of the big traders trade, right? But all throughout the night, it's moved. So something might be different. So it might be some new development. So now when I look at the charts again, I'm able to look now and say, okay, what do I see now? Right? Because you never want to get to, like, you have to be fluid with trading. Like, you have to realize that, like, it's okay if you're wrong. You just, like, your goal is to make money. It's not, you don't have to be right all the time. Right? So, and I think sometimes, like, even me, like, one of the things that I'm still working on is, like, some days I don't like being wrong. Right? Like, I much rather be right. And so you have to just get to a point to be successful. You have to get to a point where you're able to say, if I'm wrong, I'll admit it quick and move on. Right? And okay, if I had a bias from yesterday, it doesn't have to be the same bias today. No. If I see something differently today, then I now have a new bias based on the new development, right? Of the market moving all throughout the night. I didn't see what the market did throughout the night when I had the bias. So now there's new development. So now I say to myself, based on this new development, what is my bias now at 8 a.m. this morning? So now when I see that, now of course I'm looking at Forex Factory to see, is there news? Now if news comes out, also now I have to also factor that in, right? Maybe I have to wait for the news to come out first, and then I'll have a new bias after that. I might have a bias before the news, but bias before and after the news is completely different because news moves things, right? I'm sure you've seen that time and time again. So I may have a bias before the news comes out and say, I might even say, if this news is good, this is my bias. If this news is bad, this is my bias, right? But regardless, to answer your question more directly, some days I form a temporary bias at market close based on what I think it's going to do tomorrow, but I don't hold on to it so tightly. No, it's a belief that I have, but it's loosely held because I know it can change with new development. And so ultimately, the next day when I wake up, some days it varies, right? Some days I'm like up super early. Some days I wake up right before the news. Some days I just decide to sleep in. So I trade whenever I decide to trade. But ultimately, though, when I get up in the morning, I look at the charts also after the news to see what's the new development. All right. And so, of course, I look at Forex Factory first. If there's news coming out, I just wait. Some days I don't even want to create a bias, right? Before the news. I wait for the news to tell me what is the direction fundamentally. And then, I go in the higher time frame, right? So sometimes like it's interchangeable, right? So for me, I don't look at five. Like I'll try to give you something that's like transferable to you as well and not be too specific because it varies. Again, I've made the point to like trade identity, right? If I'm a more longer term trader, if I'm okay with holding a trade overnight, then I can look at different time frames, right? But if not, then I look at time frames that might be most conducive to, how long I want to hold for, right? And my trader identity as a whole. So ultimately, though, what I would say for you is I don't look at more than three time frames, right? Especially because like once I look at the higher time frame, like that's the most credible source anyways, right? It's just like this is something else too with time frames, right? So it would be just like you had a close friend that told you this happened today in class or this happened today in church while you weren't there. Okay? That's your higher time frame. That's your best friend. Like she hasn't lied to me yet, right? I don't have any reason to not believe what she's saying. That's your best friend. And then you have somebody else that may be an associate, somebody you see in passing, you say hi and bye in church or in class or whatnot. And then she tells you, this happened. So now there's a correlation now because what the associate is saying aligns with what your best friend is saying, right? The higher time frame is your best friend. You know that's your credible source. She hasn't lied yet, right? And so now you're able to look at that and say, well, this is the lower time frame. This associate that I say hi and bye to in church is saying something that my best friend also said. So now it holds more weight because that's a confirmation more than anything. I'm not looking to see to get the truth out of the associate. No, I get the truth from my best friend because I could trust my best friend, right? And then if other associates, other people in the church come to me, like I give them names, right? Associate number one, 15-minute time frame, comes to me and says, "Oh, this happened?" I'm like, "Oh, okay." Correlates with my higher time frame best friend. Now the 5 minute comes to me and says, "Oh, this happened?" And I'm like, "Oh, both of y'all correlate to my higher time frame best friend." So now I'm able to look at that and say, that's all I need to hear. I don't need to hear from the mouth of 4 or 5 witnesses. No, three is enough. But the most important one is the most credible source. Now, if I get two other confirmations, I'm fine with that. But I don't need to hear from like 4 associates. No, because honestly, I believe my best friend anyways. If the associate didn't walk up to me and tell me anything, I'd be fine, right? I'd be fine because I know for the most part, I trust what she's saying, what she says in general. So ultimately, it's the same thing. Now, if I get just one person come to me, associate time frame number 15, comes to me and says, yo, this happened. And I'm like, okay, that's good. So ultimately, how that relates to your question is I try to just hold on to just, 3 time frames at most. Sometimes I do 2, right? But 3 at most, because I don't want any like too much confusion, right? Because guess what? 1 minute time frame might come and say, oh, I know so and so told you something happened at church. It didn't really happen. Now I'm conflicted, right? Though that lower time frame doesn't really hold any weight, but I still think about it because now I'm like, well, why is this person saying something differently from everybody? So though I might trust the higher time frames, but now it's that seed of confusion coming from the 1 hour time frame, that associate that I don't even know like that. They could be lying for all I know, right? So it's the same exact approach, all right? I don't need too many confirmations, right? Because at some point, sometimes people may lie or whatever. Maybe that associate wasn't even there. Maybe they didn't witness what happened. That's why they believe that it never happened. So all of these things I think about. So I'm going with the first confirmation, anyways, from my credible source. Now, if I get 1 or 2 more, that's fine. That's all I need. So ultimately, though, what I'll say is like 2 time frames are good, right? The reason why, because really you only need one major higher time frame. The other would be like just for entry. The other 2 time frames, would be lower time frames just for you to know, like just for you to get on the plane 15 minutes before it happens or 10 minutes before it happens. That's it. So, but ultimately, if you get one time frame, if you get in on the plane 15 minutes before and it's not 5 minutes before, you're still fine. You can sit down for 15 minutes and wait for the move to happen, for you to take off. So you might not need a whole bunch of lower time frames. You just need, more importantly, you need that credible source, which is the high time frame, and then you need at least one lower time frame, just to help you not have to sit on the plane for way too long before the takeoff. Now, if you get 2, right, if you're able to get on that plane 5 minutes before or whatnot, then that's perfectly fine too. So now I'm not gonna say, well, I mean, you could do 1, 15, 5, or you could do 4 hour, 1 hour, and 15 minutes. So it's one or the other, right? You can either do 4 hour, 1 hour and 15 minutes, or you can do 1 hour, 15 and 5, right? Of course, the lower ones would be if you're really just trying to get in and out of the trade. Like you want to get on that plane like as soon as it takes off, and you're not in a long flight either. Because the 4 hour, you might have to sit on the plane for longer. You might be going to Jamaica. It might not be Atlanta. It might not be New York, right? It might be a longer flight. And so ultimately, though, to answer your question, I would do one of those 2 options. I would either do 1 hour, 15 minute and 5, or 4 hour, 1 hour and 15. Or if you're doing just 2 time frames, you do 4 hour and 1 hour for a longer trip, again, I'm using metaphors now for a longer flight, 4 hour and 1 hour. The 1 hour will serve as your lower time frame in that instance, right? So 4 hour, 1 hour, or 1 hour and 15 minutes for shorter flight. So that's pretty much what I would say. So hopefully that makes sense as well too. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and I'll say absolutely that's very helpful because I think those are part of this strategy to start to develop my own persona
There you
in the
go. That's it.
trading
There you go.
arena, in this market. And I know that I need to develop that. What does that look like for me? Because
Right.
even I know, and from learning what this means, everybody has their own persona. It looks different for
Absolutely.
everybody. So I understand why
Absolutely.
you veer on the side of caution to say, well, do it the way I do it,
Exactly.
because
Exactly.
there are variables that apply
Exactly.
to each individual, and also your temperament in the
Exactly.
market. So
Exactly.
and for me, I am looking at this to be something. That's why I appreciate just
Yes,
the
ma'am.
reconfirmation on it becomes gambling when you don't understand and you're not willing to learn.
Absolutely.
But it also becomes something that you can do and learn and master certain strategies, and
Right.
what you're willing to win or lose. Well, what you're willing to, and not to say lose losses, but invest. What you're
Exactly.
willing to invest. And
Exactly.
it makes me feel good to know that not only can I put my stop losses in and my take losses, but then what does that mean for me?
Right.
And to first of all start to put those guardrails in places, and then because I have not been looking at and
Right.
I think if y'all cousins hear this and I say I'm gonna put myself out there, that I have not been I have not been looking at those higher time frames, which I understand that's what the respect is. And then
Right.
even understanding even more so today what that means, right? Because
Right.
it's not that I haven't been told these
Right.
things. It's like a syllabus. You learning
Right.
something, but it's just informational at first. And then
Right.
and then as you start
Right.
to matriculate and you're
Yeah.
still in that same, specialization, it
Right.
begins to open up to you more. So it's not that you didn't really
Right.
respect what was told to you as a freshman, but now you're
Right.
a senior and you're still in that same specialization. Now you start to get it more. You've been there longer, so
Right.
there's more respect. It's things
Right.
have been tested, they're tried, and they're true for you. And so
Mm-hmm.
for me, looking at, and thank you for speaking to those time frames, because I think, when I'm doing my technical analysis and starting to look at what happened, and you talked about what happened overnight,
Mm-hmm.
because the market is still moving. It's only closed like for that 1 hour because it's open, what, 23 hours a day. It
Yep.
depends on which market,
Yep.
you are in. Um, so when you get in and you have watched the market, and let's just say all things are equal, it moved normal, there was no news that really stood out.
Right.
So then you were able to get in. Is there like the next day? Because it's still moving, it's fluid. The currency, I love that
There you
so
go.
much. That current, that sea,
Yeah.
the waves, which way you kind of know the current, you kind of studying that current. Every day
Right.
you getting up around the same time, you see how the water is coming in. You see how it's
Right.
the ebbs and the flows, the peaks and the
Exactly.
highs, lows. Okay,
Exactly.
so say that because you have been studying it
Yes,
and
ma'am.
it looks about the same. Is there a range? So you did say you do your overnight, then you come in at 1 hour and you check to
Right.
see what went on based on yesterday. So you really let it kind of sit
Right.
overnight to see if it's still doing about that same thing.
Right.
So then
Mm-hmm.
at 1 hour, you see wasn't a lot of fluctuation there. It
Right.
looks about the same. And so then you move into that 15 minutes. But then
Right.
your entry point, say you enter at 5.
Right.
I think my thing is, what is your range for saying I'm going to enter in at this 5 minute, and it has overnight, and from yesterday at closing, when I closed out, it
Right.
closed for 1 hour, but then it opened back up. But I
Right.
closed out, and overnight it was bullish.
Right.
it was up. It was just going up. It was just going up,
Right.
up, up, up.
Yeah.
And it just kind of stayed there, consolidated for a period of time. People went to lunch, they got off the flight, people were trying, they were cleaning the plane, whatever was going on. I
Mhm.
love that
Yep.
that simulation, that metaphor. And
Right.
so everything is just kind of, everybody's just kind of waiting, they consolidating.
Right.
So you took into account all of that.
Hmm.
Now, when you got to that, the 1 hour, you did the 1 hour check, I'm ready to
Hmm.
go.
Yep.
But then you waited until you kind of set your structures in place. You set the ceiling and the floor. You set that in place.
Right.
Then you wait for it to break structure up or down, but because you knew that overnight it was still bullish in
Hmm.
the same particular market that you're
Right.
buying or selling in. So
Right.
now you already have in your mind, just because it's been consistent, because
Right.
your best friend said
There you
it's
go.
bullish.
There you
And so
go.
everybody else came in the high and by was like, oh, so and so is bullish today.
There you
And
go.
so then
Uh-huh.
in 15 minutes, they came by, they was like, yeah, bullish. You heard
There
it.
you
And then
go.
at 5 minutes, you looking at it for yourself.
Right.
It still said bullish, but
Mhm.
what allows you to get in? Do you just get in at bullish because of what happened yesterday? Because my nervousness and my
Mhm.
trepidation has been, I'm in, but then it looks like it then all of a sudden decided it wanted
The
to
reverse.
tease me and go back down to bearish.
Yep. I'm going to touch on that a little bit on the
Okay.
technical analysis slide, but you're making a very good point. And to answer the question that you asked, again, once I already got my main confirmation, right, from the best friend, right? I got that. So once I get another associate to tell me, "Yo, this is bullish," then that's all the information I need right there and then, right? Because now the associate is telling me this is like this is a closer time period towards you taking off. Remember, I said the higher time frame is like, okay, you're gonna take flight Thursday, right? The associate, the lower time frame is telling me, okay, within the next hour, you're taking off. So let's say I go into 5 minutes. If I want the third, I could make the decision off the second, but let's say I use the third time frame, for instance. Ultimately, what I'll do then is once I get that like final confirmation, I'm getting on the plane. I'm getting on the plane right there and then. Now, I may get on the plane and it still may take a couple minutes for it to take off. And that's perfectly fine. But there's one thing I know for certain. I know that it is about to take off. Like this is as close as I possibly can get towards getting on this plane without me having to sit on this plane for a long period of time before takeoff. So if I see 1 hour is aligning, for instance, the 15 minute and the five, that I'm getting on the plane and right there and then, even if it means that I have still a few minutes to sit on the plane before it takes off, right? Because that's a part of it. At least I'm on it, at the appropriate time. It's like when you get on the plane, it's the same thing. You have the crew members, they'll give the announcement, tell you about the live, the live vest, the oxygen mask, and all of that. I still have to sit in here for a few minutes before we take off, anyways. So maybe I'm just like enjoying that experience, right? Of getting the information, them letting me know if I'm sitting by an emergency, door, I need to be willing to help people or not. Like, I'm fine with that, because at least that's not me getting on the plane while they're cleaning it the day before, right? So I'm still on here right before takeoff. Now I might have to sit out, sit in on, the standard procedure of them giving me information and all of that for a few minutes, and that's fine. And you have sometimes too where on the plane they'll tell you, oh, they're just doing some final checks, right? You're supposed to have taken off, but they'll tell you just for safety measures, they just want to just check some things really quick. And once they confirm, you'll take off, or they just put in fuel in it, right? Maybe it's just been a super busy day. The plane landed kind of late and they just want to just make sure that they have all it needs. For me, I'm fine with that because I understand if we're gonna take off anyways, it's no rush. I know they're following their standard procedure to make sure that we actually land, and I'm fine with that. So I trust the process in that case. If the pilot is saying, "Okay, guys, it's gonna be a little bit of a delay," that's fine. I trust the pilot because guess what? My best friend said dot dot dot. So hopefully that answers the question. So for the next one, right? So for practice, for technical analysis, for the chart, I would recommend using TradingView or whatever trading platform you use, right? I don't necessarily use TradingView. I just use my trading platform because the chart is basically created by TradingView anyways, right? So it's the same thing that I'm looking at. And it's best for me to do my markup there because I'm getting into the trade on that chart anyways. Trading view is external. But for somebody that doesn't yet have a trading account or whatnot, or is just new to it, trading view is fine because you don't even need an account. You could just go on the website, look at the charts for any asset, and you're good to go. But you practice on your chart. That's the key. You want to practice on your chart. It's better if you practice on the platform that you're actually going to be trading with so that if you have certain markups, you can save it, right? So that now you can see those key levels that you marked up as time goes on. So that's basically that for like the overview for market analysis. So now when I was making this when I was putting together this PowerPoint yesterday, I when I got to this point right here, I felt the need to have like more slides, right? That more slides that go in depth on each of these. And so that's what I did. I pretty much just created one slide for each of these. I was gonna leave this as it was for, at first, but I just felt the need to just go a little bit further with it. So moving on to the next, the first one will be fundamental analysis, right? And so for fundamental analysis, again, this would really just confirm and align with what I was saying earlier about what it is, right? So you have economic data, you have geopolitical risks or wars and things of that nature, shortages, you have market sentiment, so just like interpretations of what people, might think, right? How they perceive things. That's what sentiment, really comes down to. Then you have central bank meetings, so, the interest rates and all of that, like all of those things tie into that. For regular economic data, you have like GDP stuff, you have inflation and all of that that falls into that category. Now, the last one is earning reports, right? So sometimes, like for people who do trade stocks, you have like companies have to report their earnings to see if how much they made for the month or the quarter. So it's the same thing too for the country, right? Those things are all important. Every single one of the things in here make up fundamental analysis, right? And they're very crucial to understanding what fundamental analysis, pretty much is comprised of. And again, most importantly, how does it relate to you, right? So that's the key thing. So fundamental analysis, again, like I've mentioned, it gives like overall insight on where the market is going, how an asset is doing, how the nation is doing as well too, right? And then I give the example of this early, right? The interest rate example. So if they cut interest rates, which would be central bank meetings or fall under this category. If they cut interest rates, ultimately, that just means that people are more inclined to borrow money, right? And if they borrow money, they have more money to spend. And guess what? They spend it on businesses. Businesses have stocks, right? And the stocks, they appreciate, they do well. So ultimately, interest rate being cut really drives consumer spending. Though that's tied to each other. Interest rates are cut, people can borrow money for, less interest. And people spend money when they get money. That's like a natural fact, right? The more money people have, the more money they're going to spend. Because people have even things like lifestyle inflation. That's why you have during COVID, they handed out those stimulus checks, and you see it came and went. It came to pass, right? Like for a lot of people. So it's the same thing. Like the more money is in circulation, the more money is going to be spent. It's natural because people have needs. And so they're always going to spend money based on needs, right? To fulfill those needs. And they spend money with businesses. Businesses, are assets, right? That drive the economy, especially small businesses, which is like the backbone, really of the US economy as well. So yeah, so ultimately, when you look at it from a strategic standpoint, fundamental analysis helps you create a directional bias, right? Before you move into your technical analysis. So it gives you perspective on, okay, long term, all right, where is this asset going based on this news, based on this data, right? Based on the fundamentals, that go hand in hand with it. And so, like the interest rate example per se, you're able to see where is the dollar going based on that. Where is gold going based on that directionally, right? So, like I'm telling you right now, if they cut interest rates, you're going to see 9 times out of 10, gold will like decline a bit because, like I said, it appreciates one way. And people look to maximize opportunity when there's less risk and more money. So less risk, more money means greed and maximizing opportunities. So people move away from safety, right? Again, gold is a safe haven. They move away from safety when they have more money and less things to fear about. And they move into, well, how do I maximize my profit? I no longer need to be safe now, end quote. Now I want to maximize my profit. So they move into that. So ultimately, when you see something like, okay, they cut interest rates, then you know your directional bias long term until some other news comes out later along the line that shows maybe that they're raised interest rates or whatnot, or something else, right? That may be the good or bad for the dollar or for gold. Up until that happens, your directional bias is going to be based on the new development you just got. And again, the same rule applies to how you approach technical analysis when it comes to developing your bias. You want to be flexible because things like this is the ocean. The market is the ocean. It moves however way it wants to. I don't control the ocean. I don't try to tell the ocean how to move or to just ebb and not flow or to just flow and not ebb. I can't tell the ocean that it does what it wants to do. My job is to be flexible, to be fluid, and to flow, right? So it's the same exact way. If news comes out today and you create a directional bias based on that, there might be news that comes out tomorrow that contradicts that. And you have to be flexible to the new development. And there's always new development in any market, right? Because you have, even in the farmer's market, if we go back to that example, you might have maybe there was an outbreak or something. And now, there's something wrong with all the apples. Now people don't really want to buy apples anymore. So the apples I just sold for $2, nobody wants to buy off of me today now, right? Because they feel like if they eat these apples, they're going to be sick. You see, that's something new that happened literally the next day. I just sold the apples yesterday. Now today I can't because people don't want to buy them. So you see, even in the farmer's market, there's need for flexibility because things like that happen, right? So ultimately, you always want to be flexible. You move based on the development that you receive today. Trading is a daily bread type of thing. Today, what's my bias? What am I looking at? What is true today? Tomorrow, it might be false. There might be another truth that comes out. So you always want to approach it with a fresh mind like that as well, too. It's also just like, it's like forgiveness to an extent as well too, right? Okay, you did this, you made this mistake or whatnot, right? Now I have to forgive, let go, and give that access again to see if you do something different, right? Then I know, okay, there's new development, right? Now, if you do the same thing, I probably need to kind of, take a step back or whatnot. But ultimately, it's the same way. But you have to allow room even for human beings to change and be who they are, right? And so even within the change, like you have to be flexible to that. You have to be flexible to be able to see, okay, well, this person made this mistake, but they didn't do it again. I respect that, right? And so, it might be what the way they reacted or responded to you may have been different yesterday than it is today. It's flexibility, especially with human beings. You got to be like your mindset has to be, hey, this is a new human being I'm meeting today. Even if I've known this person, because it might change. Their mood might be different. Something bad might have happened back home. They might have some, maybe somebody that's sick in their family and they're frustrated and all of these different things, right? Tie into even dealing with human beings. The market is made up of human beings. That's it. That's what make the market goes up or down. You have a bunch of human beings literally driving price. And think about it, even in relation, day-to-day relations with people, people do different things based on how they're feeling, based on how they're doing, based on how people around them are doing. And so it's the same exact thing with the market as well, because the market is comprised of people. So you always have to be flexible to that. The same way you would be flexible with dealing with somebody, relationally in person, right? Or in real time. It's the same way too. You have to be flexible to, just treating the market like an entity because it is an entity comprised of a bunch of different people with different emotions, different sentiments, different feelings, different financial situations. So ultimately, fundamental gives directional bias. And then once you get that right, you move into your technical. So that takes us to the next slide. So this is where I was going to kind of just elaborate on more like technical stuff, right? So I'm gonna go over the key points. So there's a key saying in trading that says the trend is your friend until the end when it bends. Quoted it, right? Because it's very true. It's very true. If you get on the right side, you do well, right? If the right side becomes different from what it was yesterday, you have to adapt because if not, you have to pay the price for that, right? Because again, you have to move with the market. Right? And sometimes it's not even it changing every day. Sometimes what it does this hour might be different from the next hour. So you have to be flexible to that, right? And always approaching it with a fresh mind, thinking of what is the trend now? Not yesterday, not the past 10 hours. What is the trend right now? Because you're trading right now. You always have to be present, approaching it like that. What is this person doing right now? What are these people doing right now? What is this market doing right now? And sometimes, you might have to also look to see what has it done in the past as well. There's room for that also to consider, where is price stopped at in the past and rejected or bounced off of all of those things. Sometimes you look to the left, as they say, right? Look at previous, movements and all of that to get more confirmation. But you start with the now before you go into what has it done in the past, right? So because now is the most important moment in the market all the time. The past gives you insight on maybe what it might repeat, but now it could do whatever it wants, right? But you cannot force the market to do what it did in the previous moment because it's different. Now is a new moment. Every moment is unique in the market. So ultimately, that's where this quote comes in handy, which says, the trend is your friend until the end when it bends, right? So you always want to make sure you're on the right side. Now, if you look at this image right here on the right, you see you have, a low, a high, higher low, a low, a higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, high high, and then boom, lower low. This lower low moment was when the trend no longer became our friend, right? So what do we do then? We say, okay, it's time for me to adapt, right? So ultimately, that's why I have here, follow the trend until the trend is invalidated. This lower low moment was the trend being invalidated. So now when you see this, right, equally, right, I'll show you when to get in, but there are two things that you have to know. Just like you have your take profit and stop loss in the market. You want to know where's my target, and you also want to know what am I willing to risk, right? Most people they approach it one-sided. They know what they want to make, but they don't know what they're willing to pay in return if they had to, right? They know what I want, but they don't know the price that comes with that. The price is what's my stop loss, just in case, right? But most people, even in real life, not just with trading, most of us approach life this way. We think, oh, what do I want? We don't think, what do I have to do to get what I want? What is the price for what I want? What do I have to give up for what I want? What do I have to gain for what I want? Who do I have to be to get what I want? We don't think about that. We just think, what do I want? But those factors come with it, whether we realize it or not, right? So the bottom line is the same thing applies, right? Just as it's important to know what you want to make, it's important to know what you're willing to risk in order to make that. So same thing, goes with this, right? You know when to get in, right? For the most part, but you also want to know when to get out as well too. So ultimately, with the market, when you see this moment right here, where it's at the higher high, right? When it hits this higher high and it comes down, and you see a trending market, it goes and has this higher high, and it comes down and make this higher low. This higher low becomes your entry, right? Because it's a trending market. So if it goes like this, it comes down right here, I know ultimately at least it's going to go back to this previous high. So I would enter at this higher low right here to get in for it to go at least back to that high right here, right? So the same thing, if the market, hits this point, I want to wait till it makes this higher low, and then I enter right here. And I hold it until either hits this previous high or makes a new high. So that's my entry. I find a trend and I enter at the higher low if it's going up, right? And the same thing, if it's going down, if I wanted to go down, I enter at the lower high right here, right? And get in until it gets at least to the lower low moment or it breaks, right? Or I can even hold it until the trend is invalidated. But when the market is trending up, you want to get in, wait for this higher low, and you get in right here. So that's just pretty much it with when it comes to when you get in and when you exit as well too. So now, how do you know when to get out? Well, if the trend is going up, I exit when it makes a lower low, when the trend is invalidated, right? It's the same thing, if it's going down, when it makes a higher low, I also exit there as well. Does that make sense? Got you. So, reason why I wrote this, the last part was because like most of the time we try to overcomplicate it, but it shouldn't be hard, right? You just find a trend and get a good entry, right? If it's going up, get in at a higher low and hold it. If it's going down, get in at a lower high right here. And just let it, go towards that direction. That's all trading is. We overcomplicate it for ourselves. Yes, ma'am. I think you're muted. Okay.
Talking on mute. Okay, so, all right, now this is where the nerves come in, right? Because
Yeah.
everything that you just taught, everything that your cousins have taught, and understanding this lower high
Right.
and getting in at that higher low.
Right.
Understanding when to get in and when to get out. Because even though you've done your top down analysis, You
Right.
have set your structures in place, the ceiling, the floor. You've done all of these markups. You've done all of these things. You have, looked at what that would look like from yesterday based on, what your trusted friend, that respect is on that friend and that higher,
Right.
those higher lows. So you see, so when you get in, so then when you're at, so right here at this lower high,
Yes, ma'am.
have you moved to like 5 minutes at that point when you
So,
start to look at that, where it then start to
mhm,
trend for that moment that you're ready to get in the market? Because you've already
that's a
looked
good
at the
point.
analysis, you've looked
Right.
at the technical analysis, you see what it is
Right.
doing. And that, I think, because that is where I'm still a bit fuzzy, right? Because in
Right.
theory, everything that is here, and I
Right.
think for people who will be learning in this space and
Right.
will hear what I'm asking now, will come to this place where they will then ask you,
Right.
once it's time to get in, because right now it looks like the current is in a controlled environment.
Right.
When that thing get real,
Mhm. That's
and
when it's
you're at that
consolidated.
lower low, is that at that 5 minute mark where
Hmm.
you're like, okay, I'm getting on and I see that it is going up? Because based on what you've already, the trending, you've
Right.
already, it's tried and true. You
Right.
know it's going to at least do from the lower to the higher.
Right.
It's going bullish. And
Right.
then it goes, and then I love the way you explain it, then the higher low.
Right.
So it's still, what it has done, it's still in an upward trend, but it
Right.
then came down, but it did not break that low where I entered.
Right.
But so far, it's just kind of trending. It's still trending
Right.
up. It's still trending
Hmm.
up. And what I heard you say is, then you right there, you have marked it to at the lower low, and you looking at it to go at the higher high based on what you've already assessed in your
Right.
analysis from the higher time frames.
Right.
So that's what you're marking up your chart by, your higher time frame. And
Right.
so now I'm at this 5 minute mark, and now it goes up, and I'm at that low, and it breaks that structure up.
Mhm. Right.
And then I know now confidently, right,
Right.
that it is going to now go back down to the higher low, and then it's going to go up to the higher high. It should
Right.
do that. And
Right.
then it goes down to the higher low. It
Right.
goes up to the higher high. It goes
Right.
to the higher low. It goes to the
Right.
higher high.
Right.
But now we then know that we have our guardrails in place. We have
Hmm.
our stop loss in place. So I'm not worried
Right.
about it. I ain't pressed. But
Right.
then with my higher high,
Hmm.
where do I put my take profit here? Because
Right.
at some point, when I get to that higher high right there, before it breaks structure and then it does that drop, it doesn't
Right.
warn me. The
Right.
market really don't just warn me that now I'm about to break structure and drop
Right.
on you. So
Right.
that's where the nerves come in, and I'm just like, how do I get out? Exit,
Right.
exit,
Right. Makes
everything,
sense.
cancel,
Right.
please. I'm not trying to look. Okay,
Right.
so you've taken profit there automatically, or you sitting there looking at it? So I'll be
Right.
quiet, I yield.
That's a phenomenal question. It's a phenomenal question. So one rule of thumb here, right, would be, so I don't know, can you guys see my cursor? Okay,
Yes.
perfect. Perfect. So you
Yes,
see me over and over this low right here, right?
yes, mm-hmm.
Okay, great.
Yes.
So what I'll do is, right, first I'll tell you exactly how I would approach it from start to finish, right? With, getting into a trade and exiting. So let's say when the day starts, you see this move happen, right? From the low to the high, from the low to the high, and then right here, right? What I want to do is when I see that this higher low respects this high right here, right? So you see there's like a straight line basically in between them. When I see that it respects that right here, I would get in right here, right? I would get in right here. This would be my entry point, right? And now what I'll tell you what would be my stop loss, all right? My stop loss more than likely might be maybe somewhere around here, right? At the previous higher low, right? So because if it breaks this higher low right here, that means it doesn't respect it. That means the trend is not like that's not a trend. Because if this was to just keep going down, that's not a trend anymore. A trend means there's a continuous pattern, right? So if we're right here and I enter right here because I see that it respects the previous high right here, then this will maybe a phenomenal entry, right? Then I'll just put my stop loss at the previous higher low, right? So, and then for the take profit question that you asked, I'll put my take profit at the higher high right here because I know at minimum, if it went there from here, it went there before and came down and rejected, if it indeed is a trend, it would at least go back to this higher high. At least. Now, it may continue as we see here if that's what the trend is doing. But I know at minimum, I can get it to at least come back to this point. Now, whatever it wants to do after that, that's fine. But I know at minimum, if it went there and created this higher high before, it can go back from this higher low point to this higher level again where I can exit. Now, what I could do is if I'm sitting here and I may set it, right? I may set it, but if I see that it's approaching it, it's moving a whole lot, if I'm active, this is not I'm multitasking. If I'm active, I may say, okay, I'll remove my take profit from here, right? Because if it's going to continue trending, then let's see, right? If it's approaching that. So let's say it hits this point, right? And just breaks past it. Then guess what? I would know now that it's probably going to, at least have some rejection. But what I do is now, since I'm in profit, there's something called put in stop loss in profit, right? So what I do is keep in mind I entered at this higher low right here. So now let's say I'm already halfway through and I see it's about to hit what my intended take profit would be. I would move my stop loss into profit, right? Remember, I have my stop loss right here at this level. So if it hits this level and I enter here and I'm already in profit, I want to move maybe my stop loss to at least break even at some point, right? At least if I know, because sometimes you have moments where it might move and come back to that level. It might not break it and they keep going, right? So maybe you might want to put it maybe a little bit below, right? Just for, good measure. But ultimately, the in a nutshell, what I'm saying is if you're truly in a trending market, what you want to do is maximize profit. But it's like I call it calculated greed, right? And I call it that because you want to maximize. Like if I put my take profit right here and I go from right here to right here, that's I make profit, which is positive. But if I see the market is trending and I can maximize, why not? I might want to do that, right? Now I might just say, okay, this is all I need. This move back to this high right here, and that's it. I'm good for the day. That's one way to approach it. Another way to approach it would be, okay, when I get in right here, as it starts to move close to my take profit, I would move my stop loss halfway through the profit, margin that I've made. So now if I know that it's just gonna just break and just keep going, now all I'm gonna do is something called trailing stop, right? So now instead of my stop loss being in the negative down here, right? Because entry is right here, stop loss is right here for you to lose your, little bit of money. So now once you're in profit, there's no point of you losing now. You want to make this a risk-free trade. So now maybe what I might do is as I see it approaching my take profit, I'll just move my stop loss to break even, right? So now it's a risk-free trade. If it comes back down to my entry point, I make zero, I'm fine. If I want to re-enter, I'll do that. Now I can decide I'll take profit off, right? I might even look to the left to see last time that the market went past this higher high, where did it go? If I look to the left now, if I look to the left and see where it went, I might put it at that point. I might see when I look to the left that last time it broke past this higher high, it went to this point. So now I might move my take profit there just for good measure, right? But now, as soon as I get in profit from this higher low point, my stop loss is at break even to make it a risk-free trade. So now, if I if stop loss gets hit, I lose zero, right? And to take profit, I can either just move it to a higher point, look left to see where when it broke this higher high last time, where was the next stop, right? And I look left, I find that point, I'll just move my take profit there if I feel like the trend is going to continue, right? I move my stop loss to break even. Now, when it breaks this point right here and goes right here, now what I do is I want to move my stop loss now into profit. So I just want to keep moving my stop loss. Like if I'm in a buy, right? If I want the market to go up, I want to keep moving my stop loss up and up and up. So now the take profit becomes the stop loss, right? So now, yeah, you can still have a stop loss way further ahead, but now you move your stop loss and profit because now your stop loss started here at this higher low to be in the negative. Now, since your entry was right here, if you're already in profit and you've seen the market go all the way to this high, then I'd probably move my stop loss now to give me some wiggle room. Now I'm in profit, so it's no longer break even. Now I'm in profit. So now when I see this high happen, and then it comes down and it hits this lower low, now I know, oh, so now it's respecting this high right here. So now when I see the market come and start going above, I might move my stop loss even higher to this higher low, right? So now I'm in profit no matter what. If it comes back down and rejects, I'm fine, right? I can just get out because guess what? My intended target anyways was right here, was this level. So I just want to maximize profit as much as I can without risking anything as soon as I make profit. So as soon as I make profit, I want to go straight into setting my system to put me to at least break even, worst case scenario. So there are levels, there are steps to it. When you first get into the trade, you have your predetermined risk. And you're saying, yo, I'm willing to lose this amount. Fine. As you start to get in profit in the trade, then you say, well, I don't know. I changed my mind. I don't want to lose anything. I want to be at break even as you see the market starts to go in profit. So now, as it goes even more in profit, now you say, well, I don't want to not only, not lose or hit break even, I want to also close out in some profit if it comes down to it too. So you just keep moving your stop loss higher, higher, and higher as the trend is making higher highs and higher lows. Does that make sense? Gotcha.
That
Gotcha.
does. That makes so much sense. And even as you're explaining that,
Mm-hmm.
so then in reality,
Mm-hmm.
then this will be another question. And I
Yes, ma'am.
think I'm probably trying to put those guardrails in with the stop loss and the take profit.
Mm-hmm.
That's nervous. That's almost like saying, I'm too scared to make more to make more. So
Right.
really, is it safe to say
Mm-hmm.
that I put in my stop loss
Mm-hmm.
and allow take profit to do what it needs to do, especially if I'm trailing it?
Right.
If I'm there to watch it do that. But if I'm
Right.
not there to watch it do that,
Mm-hmm.
say that I like you said, that if I'm not just watching it at that moment, like I don't have an
Mm-hmm.
alert and it tells me,
Right.
hey, now you're in.
Right.
Ding, 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 ding. And I'm not
Mm-hmm.
able to come and just watch it because I'm doing something.
Right.
I do need to have my stop loss and my take profit because my take
100%.
profit is going to really counter as my stop loss.
Right. Right.
So I need to then consider how much that is the difference between the
Mm-hmm.
stop loss
Mm-hmm.
where I entered and
Yes.
then my take profit because I'm not there to watch
Right.
this market, because it could
Right.
turn at any moment if it decided to, if it does not keep
Mhm.
trending in the direction that I entered.
Right.
So, but if I'm there to watch it and I set an
Mhm.
alert, I
Mhm.
enter in at a certain place,
Mhm.
and I that which I put my stop loss in, and I enter in
Right.
at that higher low.
Mhm.
I don't need to put in a take profit. Just let it keep doing what it's doing and keep moving it up to that next
You can
higher
do that
low,
as well.
or just to kind of watch.
Yeah. So if you decided not to have a take profit, if you were trailing stops,
Mm-hmm.
you don't need to have one because you already
Okay.
know. Like you don't need to have a take profit in that point because
Yes.
you already have some profit secured. You
Yes.
see? But if you've moved your stop loss into profit,
Mm-hmm.
then ultimately, like you've already basically told the system that I see the market going up, but if it comes back down to this point, close me out so I can take my little $100 and walk
Yes.
away. That's basically what you're saying. So in
Yes.
that moment, you
Yes.
don't really need to have a take profit if you don't want to, because
Right.
technically your take profit, if you're trailing stops like that and you've moved it
Mm-hmm.
into profit, your stop loss now and your take profit have merged,
Yes.
right? So it becomes really like your stop loss becomes your take profit at that point.
Yes.
So
Gotcha.
that's basically, what it is. And then your stop loss becomes zero, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the loss that you would if been okay with realizing, that becomes zero. And you're
Mm-hmm.
not gonna lose anything as long as you move it into profit. And now your
Mm-hmm.
take profit is whatever you've trailed it to. And if you keep
Yes.
moving it up and moving it up, that means you're just securing profit. And you just keep securing
Yes.
profit. Now, if the market decides, all right, I'm tired of giving you free money, and it comes down to that point, then you
Yes.
walk away with what you've had. But guess what? You've had a risk-free trade all along,
Yes.
and you've had some profit secured in this, like you've put that into the system. You've automated that as well too. So that way, even in the moment of reversal, you're able to walk away with experiencing a risk-free trade and you profited off of it as well too.
I love that.
Yes, ma'am.
I love that because that is actually the direction that I 100%. That's the persona. That is like
Right.
the identity in my
Mm-hmm.
trades that I want to really adapt and
Right.
continue to lean into and to
Mm-hmm.
develop in,
Right.
because the reality is this is something that I want to be able to do easily,
Right.
and it's been a bit
Mm-hmm.
confusing
Right.
to really just to learn it.
Right.
But clearly I'm learning because the way
Right.
you have broken this thing down, because Follow Grant had been broken up with the twins, with
Mm-hmm.
your cousins. They have been really, breaking ground, because I wouldn't be able to understand anything you were saying now if I
Right.
hadn't already had some fundamentals there.
Right.
And you're an amazing teacher because I'm able to even apply it. Now I'm looking at life application
Right.
and entering. And I think still I have to continue to, like you said, continue to practice, continue to
Yes,
read.
ma'am.
Do you do back testing?
I do. Um, I do sometimes, right?
Okay.
And the only reason why I say sometimes is because again, the most important moment in the market is now, right?
Yes.
However, the past gives you insight on where the market could potentially stop at, and things like that, right? So I do always look left. Like if you see this, like let's say we did get in right here at this higher low, right?
Yes.
You wouldn't really know based off of context. If none of this has happened, you wouldn't
Right.
really know if the market is going to go all the way to this high, right?
Right.
Based on real-time information, because it hasn't happened yet, right? You're still
Yes.
here. And this
Yes.
has been the highest point at this moment. So now what you want to do is you have to look left to see, okay, where could it potentially, like last time the market hit this high and it broke through this point, where did it go?
Mm-hmm.
So back testing in that sense, like I always mark up my charts. I want that context, right? So when I'm trading, I always look left to see, okay, last time the market broke, through here, where did it go and where did it stop at? Because wherever it stopped at, I either want to get out there or I want to like just set something because I know it's probably going to have the same reaction because you're dealing with human beings, right? Humans are creatures of habits. And so ultimately, it might break through. And that's the aspect of, knowing that every day is like new and unique. Because it might not respect it. It might not like pull back once it hits here. It might just go and then pull back later, right? So all of those things I want to know. But for the most part, in real time, if I see this made this higher high and it came and made a higher low, and it's now I see a reversal sign, I know at the minimum I should be able to put my take profit right here, and my target should be good.
Yes.
So that's just pretty much it. But I do back testing for the most part is normally for indicators, which I have a slide next for that as well.
Okay.
But it's to see like whether this indicator is like being able to successfully predict, the moves in the past. So back testing is mainly for indicators, but I always look left to mark up these key levels, these higher highs, these higher lows. I always like, just put lines on my chart, like that. So that's pretty much it. But another thing I wanted to highlight though is this is fine, right? For the most part, I would assume we understand just when it's going up, get in at this higher low, this pullback, right? So that you could profit off of it going back to where it just went to, and it could go again. So that's simple with entry and everything. And if you got in right here, for instance, stop loss could be like right here,
Yes.
right? You understand that. So you understand entry, you understand stop loss, and you understand take profit, which would be right here if you got in right here, right? Because you just want to see it go from where it pulled back to all the way to where it went, right? You know it could go there because it went there before, right? So it's just like you have a friend, right? You want to ask them, whether they're gonna go to the gym with you or whatnot. Y'all have gone to the gym before, right? So, in plenty of times. So, or even if it's once, you have a higher level of certainty that they might say yes if you wanted to go to the gym with them again because they've gone to the gym with you before, right?
Yes.
So there's a high chance that if they've gone or if they went with you yesterday, they'll probably go again tomorrow. So you get in right here for them to potentially do what they've done before, right here. So that's it. So entry right here, take profit right at this higher high, right? Somewhere right here, and stop loss at this low right here.
Right
And the
there.
reason why, yeah. And the reason why the stop loss is at this low is because this is the next part, when to get out. So now you know when to get in, what your levels are, but this is what you were speaking to. And it's a pain for a lot of traders, knowing when to exit, because a lot of times you don't get any warnings, right? So here it goes, right? So let's say you got in right here, for instance. If you got in right here, if you could answer, where would your stop loss be? If you got
If
in
I
right here.
got in right there, then my stop loss would be at that previous higher low.
There you go. Perfect. Right. And now, where would your take profit be if you also got in right here?
If I got in right there, then my take profit would be because okay.
What's the minimum take profit at least?
Do I go based on do I go based on the dollar sign?
What's the lowest hanging fruit?
So I get in right here where
Right
your
here.
cursor
Yep.
is.
Yep.
And my take profit would be right above that one level up.
There you
But
go. The higher high.
That higher high, but okay,
Yep.
because it has already created that
Exactly. It went there. If it went there once, it can go again. That's what you're
That's where
thinking of.
my
If
take
the trend
profit
is
would be.
real, if it's gone there before, if the market has gone there before, it can go again.
Okay.
So when you get in at this pullback right here, you want to exit where it
Right
went
there.
before, right?
Yes.
Right there. Right there. You want to exit right there at minimum. Now, it might go beyond that, which is fine, right? So you just keep moving stop loss into profit, into profit, into profit, and keeps going like that, right? So now here's the thing. If you have been disciplined enough to keep trailing stops, moving stop loss into profit, you won't need to know when it's time for it to reverse, right? The problem is when you see it start reversing, you say, "Oh no, I think it's gonna continue going. So I don't want it to hit my stop loss that I just move into profit. So let me pull it down." And now you guess what you do when it's coming down like this? You start moving your stop loss down. So now you're giving money back. Because remember, when you move stop loss into profit, you secure it, right?
Yes.
So at that point, if I'm really securing my profit like that, moving stop loss into profit, I no longer need to know when it's going to reverse. I don't need to. If it comes down to wherever I've moved stop loss to profit in, that's where I
There you
exit
go.
automatically.
The trend is my friend until it bends or until it
Exactly.
breaks. Until it
Exactly.
ends.
Or until it hits my trailing stop. That's
Got
it.
it.
But the problem is, again, we look at this and we say, "Oh, it's coming down. Oh no, I want to move my stop loss lower and lower and lower until you get to this point, right? Where now you're back at break even because
Yeah.
you weren't ready to walk away yet,
That
right?
discipline.
But the
Instead
whole
of just
thing,
letting it
exactly,
letting it break. And
exactly,
where I put that stop loss for
exactly.
security.
Exactly. So really, it's not a deficit in knowing when to exit. It's that we don't follow our own trading systems. So that's what we need to address. Because if you're trailing stops, right? Think about it. Perfect
Yes.
trade. You enter right here,
Yes.
right? For instance, you enter right here, stop loss right here. Okay. Your stop loss is at a negative, something you're willing to risk, fine. Take profit set. Now it's going up. Now you say, okay, well, let's make this a risk-free trade. It's going halfway through to my target. So now I'll put my stop loss at break even at my entry.
Right there. At my
Now,
entry. At my
risk-free
entry.
trade. So
Okay.
even if you don't make money, you don't lose either. You can take another trade later. So we got to remind ourselves. So now let's say it goes and it breaks this point.
Yes.
Now, guess what? Now you say, okay, it's gotten to that intended take profit point, right? Or it's
Yes.
close to it. So I'll
Yes.
take the take profit off and I'll put my stop loss into profit halfway through. So now, not only am I no longer losing money at this initial stop loss, I'm now not even only at break even now at my entry. Now I'm in profit at least halfway through what I was gonna make.
Yes.
And now let's say it breaks through and it goes all the way right here to this high. Guess what you do? You move your stop loss in profit at least to this higher high right here. So now that's the profit. That was your intended target anyways,
Right.
right? So you're fine. Even if it comes back down, you don't need to move it because that was your initial target. If you weren't paying attention to it and you just had your take profit and your stop loss set, it would just hit that and you'd be good if you weren't paying attention. Now you're trying to maximize profit, which there's nothing wrong with, but then you have to follow the system. So
Yes.
if it goes beyond your take profit, you want to move your stop loss into profit at least to your initial take profit point right here at this high.
At that
But
higher
now
high.
if it comes back down, fine. But if it comes down around that level and goes up, well, also, by the way, you might have to put it a little bit below that, only because
Just in
sometimes it might
case.
come back down to that exact point. Like you see, this came back down to this exact point. So you want to give it just a little bit room. So if it comes back down and it's following the trend, it doesn't take you out yet, right? It can come, right here to this high level and keep going. Now, guess what happens? If your take profit is set right below this high level, right? Because you move stop loss into profit and it comes down and it breaks this level, then guess what? You know something is wrong because every other time it went up and it respected the previous high right here.
Yes.
And it went up and it respected this higher high. And it went up, it's supposed to respect this high. If it breaks below that, it means it doesn't respect it.
Anymore.
And that means it's bending. That's
Yes.
why you have it breaking below right here. You see, it stopped. It's supposed to stop right here and keep going up and make a new high.
But it
But you
didn't.
see, it said, no, we don't respect this higher high anymore. We're tired of going this direction. So
Yes.
therefore, we're breaking this. We're not respecting the trend anymore. So at this point, when it hits that, your stop loss should have already been in take profit around that point. It should take you out right there, right? And that's fine because again, that was your intended target to begin with,
Right.
right? And regardless, even if you just take profit, I mean, your stop loss was in profit halfway through. That's fine. You made profit. Not only did you
Yes.
not lose money, you made a little bit of money. Even if it's not all the way at your target, you did. You're fine.
Yes.
Best case scenario, worst case scenario, risk-free trade, and you made a little bit of money. Best case scenario, it comes down, respects this previous high, and it keeps going
Keeps
again. And guess what? If it breaks past this, you move your stop loss into profit to this around this point again. So you
Right.
can keep maximizing. There's nothing wrong with maximizing, but you have to be able to set your systems to where you have the competitive advantage. So if it does reverse, it takes you out and you're not trying to save it and say, oh, maybe it's going to reverse. No, if it doesn't respect the high, it doesn't want to respect it. The trend is done. So
Right.
you have to allow the system to exit you out. You have to allow that. And if you're following the systems, you're going to be fine.
Okay.
Right? So that's pretty much it. So if it breaks this high and it doesn't, reverse when it gets to this level and keep going and making it another high, then you have to be able to say to yourself, the trend is done. It's no longer my friend right now. Let it take you out or exit it out yourself and just allow this new trend to form. And you can catch the new trend. That's the thing. The market is always moving. So if one direction stops, that's not the end of the world. You can always catch this too. Because now, guess what? Okay, you exit right here, right? Now, if you get into a different direction, now sometimes, of course, if you got into a buy, that means the buy is also what the higher time frame was saying. So you might not want to sell, right? When the market overall, the higher time frame is telling you the market wants to go up. You might want to wait till it starts a new trend like this again and then follow that direction, right? But for some people do both. But it's just always best to go the direction the high time frame is going. But let's say you didn't, for instance, there's still opportunity here. You can get in right here at the lower high, right? If it comes down, guess what? You do the same thing the other way around if you were in the sell. If it comes down this way, now you move stop loss into profit, right? If as soon as you get into profit, you want to move to at least break even or closer. You want to reduce your loss. The higher you get to close, the closer you get to your target, the less money you want to risk. So as the market is moving towards your direction, your stop loss should continue moving up with it and moving up and moving up and moving up until it gets into profit and until you start maximizing, right? Until it gets to your target point or goes even further. Because now you're doing the same thing in reverse. Right here, you sell right here, stop loss may be somewhere right here. Market goes is, you're in profit a bit. Now you say, well, I don't want to lose any money. So I put it at break even since I'm in profit anyways. Now it's closer to your target. Now you put it halfway through, right? So now it's not just break even. Now stop loss is in profit. But now if it breaks past this point, now guess what? You move your stop loss into profit even more lower, right? To profit more. And if it comes down, if it comes back, makes a lower high to this point, if it respects it, fine, you make even more money. If it doesn't respect it, it exits you out, but this was your target anyways. So that's fine. So that's literally it. We overcomplicate it. We shouldn't, and we don't follow our systems. And we have to. That's how we succeed. So, and then another thing too is I would encourage you if the market is going sideways, don't trade. Stay away, right? Because it speaks to what you were saying, like sometimes it might get enough strength. Like the market doesn't have, like, remember I was giving the analogy, like if I jump, my skull might not be strong enough to break the ceiling, right? The market doesn't have those same limitations. It can break. So if you're in a range and trying to do up, down, up, down, up, down,
Yes.
It might decide, I want to break through the ceiling. Now, if you try to get in to go down because you think it's gonna just keep respecting it, ultimately you don't benefit from that because you didn't realize you can't put the market in the box or in the range. It does what it
Right.
wants. It moves at some point. It decides, you know what? I'm crashing this whole range. And you have to be able to respect that. So it's best if you see the market going sideways, leave
Yes.
it alone. Only trade trends.
Yes.
Find a trend, either high a uptrend or downtrend, and trade that. Uptrend, downtrend. That's it. Sideways, leave it alone. Uptrends like this, A plus setups. Downtrends
Yes.
like these, A plus setups. Only trade the A plus setups. If you see it going sideways, leave it alone.
Got it.
All right, leave it alone. So, and then always make sure your higher time frame aligns with your lower time frame.
Got it.
Right. So same thing. If I see the market, right, the higher time frame making moves like these, right, lower lows, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, I say, okay, cool. Now I wait till something else people do is they try to, because they see the market going up, they get in at a high high. Don't do that. Wait for it's going to pull back. That's the market. It's just like,
Got it.
remember the beach.
Yes.
You never see the beach the water just go back and just keep going. No, it flows. There ebbs and flows. It's gonna go.
Yes.
If don't have the fear of missing out for this move right here. Let it
Yes.
go. Wait till it comes back down and respects this level, and then you enter. Because guess what? Now there's space in between where you enter and where it has gone before. But if you get in right here, you don't know even if it wants to go over here, because this hasn't happened yet. But when you enter right here, as it respects this level, now okay, it's back at this high that it broke through. So now it might respect this high and keep going up. So it's best to get in right here. Don't have fear of missing out and enter right here because you're like, oh, it's gonna keep going. No, wait for it to pull back to get to right here and then enter, because now you have room from here, this higher low, to the previous higher high.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's pretty much it. So only play the A plus setups in this way. Don't trade sideways, like trades.
Yes.
Only uptrends or downtrends. That's it. And let the higher time frame align with the lower time frame. So if you see a higher time frame making a move like this, now what you want to do is go on the lower time frame, also find the same pattern, right? And wait for the lower time frame even to make a higher low also. And then you get in there, because now as soon as it starts going up in the 5 minute or the 15, it's ready to move. And now the higher time frame supports it, so it's gonna keep going that direction. So you get in at a higher low, even on the lower time frame too. So that way now the lower time frame moves before you start to see the real moves on the higher time frame. But before that helps you save time from not having to be sitting in the trade, waiting. If you just use only the higher time frame, waiting for it to go your direction, right? So it's like the same thing you said. You said sometimes it teases you,
Yes.
right? So, but when you're on the lower time frame and it's aligning with the higher time frame, when you get in at a higher low, most of the time it's ready to go. So that's pretty much it. So just do your best to just keep it simple.
Yes.
Keep it simple and know the market moves in ebbs and flows. If it's going up like this, don't FOMO. Just know it's gonna come back to retest this high. And
Okay.
we'll see whether it respects it or not. If it doesn't respect it, I don't get in. If it respects it and I see it starts to have signs of pulling back up, I get in because I know it respects this high. So now I get in. So now there are people who enter right here. They become liquidity in the market,
Yes.
right? Because now they're sitting in here and they're waiting now for their trade that turned red to come back into positive. But if they would have got in right here, they would have made money before it got to this point and some when it went higher.
Yes.
That's why you have to be patient with your entries and only get in at higher lows or lower highs, depending on what trend is going
Which
in.
direction?
Yes, ma'am.
So
So,
when it's bullish, when it's going up, when it's trending up, get
mhm.
in at the higher low.
Yes, ma'am.
after I've watched it, and it's proved to me that it respects that high.
Yep, that respects the previous high. Yep.
That previous high. So,
Yep.
okay, and then if it then changes direction, I'm out of it now. I'm out of it.
Right.
It did what it needed to do.
Right.
I honored what it proved to me and
Right.
allowed it to, at my loss, got out right
Right.
there, or break, whatever it is, in profit.
Right.
In profit, I'm going to say in profit. And
Right.
so I see it now. Interesting. Something is happening and it's trending back down.
Right.
It's going into
Right.
that. So
Right.
I need to allow it to do what it do, because it took me out at that higher high. And
Yep.
it turned around right there. And I
Mm-hmm.
had put my stop loss right there where your cursor is.
Right.
And then
Yep.
it takes me out. And
Right.
then I see it and I observe it now still going into, and it gets to a lower low.
Right.
But I'm not because so what I'm looking at now is the previous higher low. It broke that
Right.
structure
Right.
there. So
Exactly.
that's how I know it's now in a lower low direction.
Right. But
Potentially right there.
before even the higher low being broken,
Mm-hmm.
you see that it broke. It didn't respect this high right here, because the trend is it respecting high highs, respecting high highs, respecting high highs. See this right here. This is a high level. It respected this. So if it gets to a point where it no longer respects the higher high right
And
here,
it breaks
that's
right
the
there at
beginning
that
of the end.
higher high.
That's it. That's the beginning of the end right here. So you don't even have to wait for it to break the higher low. No. Once it doesn't respect the higher high,
Yes.
that's the beginning of the end right there. It's
Yes.
gonna just go. And then also be mindful. Sometimes they intentionally do that to where it comes a little bit below the high high. So within the zone. That's why it's not just one line per se. It's an area, right? So that's why you always have to have wiggle room. Maybe put it a little bit lower than that high level, so it doesn't just stop you out. Because sometimes that happens, right? Because they know people are going to set it right at that level, right? People understand that. So you might have to give it just a little bit of wiggle room. You still don't want to compromise your profit, right? Unless you're ready to just, be out of the market for the day. But you give it a little bit of wiggle room. And then, like you see for this point right here, right? This was a high. You see the high is like right at the gray line, right here. Now you see this higher low came a little bit below the gray line, just a little bit. So sometimes this happens. This is exactly what I'm describing. Sometimes it might come a little bit lower and people might say, oh, it's done, right? But sometimes it's falling still. It's within the range, right? So you want to just give it a little bit of wiggle room when you have your stop loss and to take profit, so that way it doesn't stop you out. So you don't miss out on maximizing if it doesn't happen. But also if it goes down way below the high, don't try to have hope like, oh, maybe it's one of those moments. Nope. Because if it respects it, it doesn't go too deep into, no, it comes into the area. Even if it's a little bit lower than the high line, that's it. But it never just not respects it majorly. If it doesn't respect that. So that is an indicator that you need to be out.
Okay. That is so good. So let me ask you this question.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we go back to the beginning at the low where we entered in.
Yes, ma'am.
Where we made that entry, because one of the things that's key that you said, you're looking left to see what just happened. Because that is now the past. That is now my rearview mirror to look and see what just happened.
Right.
And I know you have to be able to simultaneously learn to do that, where you look left to see what just happened, so I know what's happening.
Right.
So when you get in, so you go back to your low, you're right there.
Right.
And did you at that point, at that low, you marked up, you put a margin there?
Yes.
And you're at that, okay, so that's a floor.
Yep. That's it. So maybe you put a line there.
You put a line there.
Yep.
And so then you are looking left, right? Are you to see what it's doing?
Right.
So that means that, because to your point, what you've done is helped me to be able to understand, but really
Right.
none of that had happened yet. So I'm right here, and that's the piece where I get a bit confused, because at this point I don't even know no more. Like, everything you taught me is just kind of
Mhm.
like, because I don't see this set up for me like that.
Right.
So now I'm right here, and I've done all of my technical analysis. I've done all
Mhm.
of my fundamental analysis. I'm
Right.
ready. Okay.
Right.
So I'm here, and I've drawn a line there, because I've looked at where I was yesterday, or what it has been doing in the last 4 hours, 1 hour. So I'm
Right.
looking to see what it has done in that last hour.
Right. So you're looking to see like the key levels basically. So not
From the
just like
last, from previous. Like, you
right.
just kind of look. So it's, say it's right there. It's 8 o'clock
Mhm.
down here at the bottom, where your time frames are at the
Right.
bottom of that
Right.
marker there, and you're looking back at
Hmm.
the history, and you're
Right.
saying, let's say this is now history.
Right
Let's
here.
say this is the 4 hour time frame, or this is
Okay.
the 1 hour time frame.
Right.
So right here, you're looking over. I'm gonna just use this as an example. So you're now
Right.
looking at that lower low. You looked at that trend that happened an hour ago. All of this happened within an hour.
Right.
So now, when it's time for you to get in again,
Mm-hmm.
you're sitting right there at that low, that particular lower low,
Okay.
and
This one.
this one, the very bottom one, right
This
here.
one.
You're right there, right? I'm just kind
Right.
of taking it in reverse, because
Right.
that's where I am now.
Hmm.
I'm trying to figure out what I'm about to do now. So
Okay.
you're sitting right there.
Right. Okay.
And
I see.
now I'm looking at what it did before. Am I
Right.
looking, how far back am I looking? Am I
I
looking all the
got
way
you.
back to the higher high and lower lows, or I'm
No.
and what it did? I'm just, you see what just
Yeah.
happened,
So
because I'm
so
trying to
just to
figure out what
clarify,
happened before that I'm looking at now, before I
right.
get
So
in.
just to clarify, you're referring to this one, right? That my cursor is
And
going
I'm
over?
only referring to that one because I'm trying to look at past.
Right.
I'm trying to look
Right.
at it as past, and now I'm ready to get in,
Perfect.
or to
That's
figure out
also a
what to do.
phenomenal question as well, because this is like you will have these moments, right? So when I'm looking at this, the first thing I'm looking at, right? Like even when I look at the chart is what is the trend? So right now, this does not matter because this is the past, right? All of this.
Right.
Right now, what is the trend now is the question I'm asking myself. The trend now is a downtrend because I
Yes.
see this. So if I know the trend is a downtrend, but I'm right here, right? Like
Yes.
you have a very valid point right here. What do I do? There's nothing
Yes.
going on right here.
Yes.
Most people would just get in right here because they see that it trending. But this, though directionally you might be correct, this is a bad entry, right? There's something you have to wait for. So just like you have to look at the previous key level, which
Mm-hmm.
would be right here,
Mm-hmm.
right? You have to look at the last lower low in this instance. So now look at the last lower low. I see, okay, it came down, made a new low, broke up, and then came down. So now if I'm looking at this, I'm saying, okay, this lower low more than likely will also look like the other lower low. But I know what happened when it made a lower low previously. It made a lower high. So
Yes.
now why would I get in now? It's not ready yet. So I
Yes.
want to wait for it to make a lower high, just like what it did last time. It made
Mm-hmm.
a lower low because guess what? This is where we're at right now, right? You
Mm-hmm.
always want to ask yourself, what is going on now? What state are we in right now? Everything's about the now. The
Yes.
past is for extra confirmation. The
Yes.
now is about your decision making right now in this moment. So when I
Mm-hmm.
look at this lower low,
Mm-hmm.
I say, well, last time it made a lower low, it
Mm-hmm.
made a lower high. There was a pullback. So guess what? If there's a cyclical nature to the market in that way, then I need to wait for that cycle to manifest itself, right? So I need to wait for there to be a lower high. So that means the market has to pull back from here all the way to this level right here, the past lower low.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if it breaks past, then I know, okay, I need to keep paying attention to it, right? To see if it's going to start making higher lows and higher highs again, right? But I need to wait to be patient to see what it's going to do. But if
Mm-hmm.
it comes back to this lower low point and it
Yes.
starts reversing, then I know, I've seen this before. As a matter of fact, I see this right here.
Mm-hmm.
So if it respects the lower low, then guess what? The trend is continuing.
Yes.
So therefore, I would enter at the lower high after it forms it. So I won't enter here. If I happen to open my charts and I see this and the market
Yes.
is at this point, I would
Yes.
wait to see because I know what happens after lower lows. Lower
Mm-hmm.
highs happen.
Mm-hmm.
So if I wanted to go down, a better entry would be at a lower high because
Mm-hmm.
that's the pullback. So I'm able to maximize profit back down. So what I would do though to answer your question more in a more straightforward manner would be I would wait till it creates a lower high,
Right
and
there.
then if it respects the previous lower low,
Yes.
then I would
And it pulled
enter
back down.
exactly. I would enter right there
Uh-huh.
as it's coming back down, and I'll put my take profit right here and stop loss at this lower high, and
Mm-hmm.
I'll just keep moving stop loss into profit, into profit, into profit. And if this trend keeps going, then I just keep profiting like that. So that's pretty much
In
it.
the opposite direction.
Yep, going down.
Okay. And so the same if I go all the way back over to the left in
Mhm.
the upward trend
Right,
and I see um that low
right here.
high, higher low, and then that higher high and then higher low. And I see it right before.
Right.
And that's when I'm going to say, okay, so I see now
Hmm.
it has come up to, let me see, so it's at the
Like right
low.
here.
Okay, so right where you have the low, right? You see where you have
Right,
the low?
right.
Okay, so that's actually going to be past. You see how new traders
Mhm.
like myself get confused when I
Right,
don't see anything before it. It's so easy for us to
right,
see what you have created for us,
right,
but when we don't see anything before
right,
that, so at this point, this really has already happened in
right.
essence, in theory.
Hmm.
This has happened. So that's what I'm actually analyzing
Right,
is what has happened in the last hour
right,
to try to
right,
make a determination in that 15-minute or the 5-minute time frame
right,
based on the trending that has happened there. And the
right,
reason why I'm feeling like I'm trying to trust that what happened in the last hour is because of what happened in the last 4 hours of when it
right,
closed at night. And
right,
this is what it's looking like. It looks like it's
right,
trending and making
right,
the higher highs and higher lows. And it's
right,
doing that. And so then at that hour, I already see what has happened there. And
right,
so that's when I then make that determination because I watched what it did and
right,
now it's doing a new thing. Well, it's doing
right,
the same thing, but the candlesticks are now doing something because I have
right,
come to the time it has ended in that hour.
right,
It clicked zero. Now, new candlestick is forming and it
right,
has pulled back to that
right.
higher low. But what I hear you saying is wait until it then starts to form that higher high, a pattern, a trend.
Right. You have to see the pattern, right? Like there's a saying in trading that says trade what you see. So there
Mm-hmm.
never be a moment where there's nothing to the left, right? This is like a simulation, right?
Yes.
That's why this just starts out of nowhere. But something
Yes.
happened before this as well
Yes.
too. There was probably, something like this,
Yes.
right? Something
Yes.
like this, and then
Yes.
something down to this point, and then it just kept, doing that. So there was something to the left. The only moments you have is where there's nothing forward, right, to your right, like this
Mm-hmm.
moment right here,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or when you're at the high moment, right? Or this,
Mhm.
you'll
Yes.
have those moments, but there'll always be something left. So if there's something left, you make your decision based off of that, right?
On what's
Like if the,
left.
exactly. Like let's say I get in right, like I open the chart to right here at this high,
Yes.
and none of this exists. None of these exist.
Right.
If all I see is this, I would look to the left and say, huh, okay, I see this happen, right? This zigzag, right? So now I would say, I'm not gonna FOMO. I'm going to wait for it to retrace to this high right here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if it gets there and it breaks, fine. I'll just keep paying attention. I won't make a decision until I know for certain what it's going to do. But if it respects this high, then guess what? I know it's going to do exactly what it did in the past. Also, it's going to do something like this again. So if I'm here,
Yes.
I don't have information on whether it's going to keep going or whatnot. One thing I know for certain is the market doesn't just go one direction forever. It does not.
Yes.
And if the market is truly trending, right, which is the best market to trade in, then ultimately I have to look left and see, okay, what was the last point that it broke? Because then that was the ceiling at some point. And now it could potentially be the floor,
Yes.
right? And if it does happen to be the floor, then I get in at the floor and I jump up back to the ceiling and I exit there.
Got
So you look left to see what was the previous ceiling that was broken that could potentially become the floor.
it.
And
Mm-hmm.
you exit when it gets to that new floor, if that's what the
Yes.
market decides.
Yes. That's
So does
good.
that make sense?
Oh, that's so helpful. It does.
That's good.
It makes sense because trying to imagine, trying to imagine like what happens and then you become a blank slate again, like you forget
Right,
and you're like, oh my God, now I'm faced with this again. What happened now? What am I
right,
doing?
right. And that's why I have like this next slide also, right? I put the next slide on there because I feel like it's going to help with your decision making because it does help with mine. So we went through, fundamental analysis, and then we went through, so we did fundamental, we did technical. So now the next thing, right? Those are the main two types of analysis. So next thing now I want us to get into is the indicator. All right. So we should be like more than halfway through now, the presentation. The rest is just like kind of encouragement things, things like that. But this section, the reason why this took so much time is because this is the core of trading, fundamental analysis, technical analysis, and your indicator as well. This is the core. That's why this took the most time, right? So, but ultimately, I added this on here because I believe it's going to be very helpful for you as well. So, and you might appreciate this correlation, but try to, when understanding an indicator, look at it like discernment, right? Or having a man on the inside that gives you like that kind of foreshadows things. It's just like having that friend, right? Even when you're not there, they're there to tell you, what's going on, right? Or what's about to happen. Oh, next Sunday, by the way, yeah, they're planning on doing this next Sunday. So make sure you dress accordingly. Now you're like, oh, this is gonna happen next Sunday. Let me prepare myself for that. So that's what the indicator is. The indicator it foreshadows what will potentially happen to the market, right? Based on momentum before the market makes that move. So the indicator is the one that tells you is the pilot, right? Or the flight attendant that tells you, all right, we're prepared for liftoff. I'm prepared for takeoff. That's what the indicator does, right? So look at it like that, right? It's the person that announces, okay, guys, we're about to take off. Please fasten your seatbelts, put everything up because we're about to, take off or we're about to land, right? The takeoff is the buy, the landing is the sell, right? Or up and down. So look at it like your co-pilot, right? Or your pilot on the plane that is announcing to you when you're about to take off and when you're about to land before it actually happens. So that's what the indicator is, right? Now, ultimately, your indicator is your additional confirmation to trade, right? And then also indicators are also more accurate on higher time frames. So everything is more accurate coming from your best friend. That's it. Everything. Even when you're working along with indicators, it's also more accurate then, right? So ultimately, even when you're looking at your indicators, the whatever the indicator is telling you on the higher time frame holds more weight as well too, because it's giving you the indication based on whatever time frame that you're on. And just as the higher time frame structures hold more weight, the indicators as well do too. So, last thing I wrote on there was like pretty much like a disclaimer, right? No indicator is always right. Like sometimes, it flips, showing a sell, and then at some point it flips back, buying and all of that stuff. So no indicator is always right, right? But from my experience with the MACD indicator, which MACD just means moving average convergence divergence, right? So, in my experience, most of the time the MACD is right. Majority of the time, especially on the higher time frames. And now this is why I said I had a slide that might relate more to the back testing because you back test mainly with indicators, right? So you look back and say, okay, the last time this thing told me to sell, did it go down? The last time it told me to buy, did the market actually go up? And you just keep looking to see what's his track record, right? It's just like you back testing is just like recounting testimonies, in my opinion. You're looking and saying, okay, what's God's track record for my life? All of these times he rescued me from this, provided then, et cetera, right? Back testing is just it's your testimonials to see is this credible? Can I trust you to do what you said you're gonna do? Can I trust you when you tell me to turn right? Can I trust that there's no danger in right? Right? That's what your indicator is. Now, of course, it's not God and it's not discernment, in trading this is a good friend, right? So the indicator is like your additional confirmation. When you see those structures, within the market, higher time frame, you've created your, bias. So of course, foundational would be your fundamental analysis first. No news, all of that is out the way. You've gotten, good direction. And your technical, you see the structure, you see what the overall trend is on the higher time frame. Lower time frame, you see it kind of aligning or whatnot. You want to make sure, even as a matter of fact, while you're analyzing your higher time frame, you want to look at the indicator as well on there too, right? So you want to look at the indicator for both. So the same way you're able to look at the trend based on what we just, looked at as being a trend, you see the patterns, right? Once you see that in the charts, you then have the indicator give you the confirmation to show you it's ready or it's not. So that's the extra confirmation. Outside of somebody just telling you that, it's like now the pilot telling you, all right, guys, prepare, we're ready for takeoff in a few minutes or whatever. So that's why the indicator is very important. So it's like a cheat code, right? But it's like this is available to everybody. Everybody has the MACD on their chart, just everybody doesn't know about it or uses it, but it's very, very crucial and it's very helpful. And like I said, it's not going to be right all the time. And you can back test it to see, especially on the higher time frames, you can back test it. One thing for certain is when you back test, you'll see that most of the time the MACD is right. So that also helps with your decision making in moments where you feel like I don't know what to do. You're able to, look at the high time frame on the MACD, scale down also to see whether the low time frame is ready, like for entry, going the same direction that the higher time frame is going on. So hopefully the explanation makes sense, but to just kind of, break down the image, like it's a bit self-explanatory for the most part. If the green line, like breaks above the red line, right, then it's a buy. Right. That's why the green, they highlighted the green, I mean the buy as green, right? If the green line breaks above the red line, it's a buy. Sometimes the green line on certain like charts would be blue, but it's the same concept. It's either blue or red. or green or red. Regardless, we know what red is. All right, red is something's going down. Blue or green, whichever one, we attribute that to, growth in some way, shape, or form. So if green line breaks over the red line, we know the market is going to, go up. Red line breaks, above the green line, we know it's time to sell. It's going to go down. And it just keeps going, like that. So this is something really good to utilize. I believe you could definitely, if I'm not mistaken, you should be able to see the MACD on the trading view. If not, definitely for the most part, whatever trading platform you currently use should have the MACD available as well too. So this is a great indicator for decision making. It just gives that like extra, like just help. Like whenever you have moments where you feel like, oh, I don't necessarily know what to do based on structure, for the most part, structure should give you an idea, right? But this indicator gives you more of like, a definite when it comes to when to pull the trigger, right? So okay, time to get in, time to exit. So, and like I said, it holds more on the higher time frame. And it's not always right, but I guarantee you, most of the time, the MACD is right. And you should back test it as well too to see with gold to see, but I think the MACD would be very helpful to you as an indicator as well. So we're good so far? Okay.
This is
Uh,
wonderful.
yes, ma'am.
This is so very helpful, very informative,
Yes, ma'am.
very beneficial. And I think individuals who are beginning, like beginner traders, this is like amazing. And if they have a core belief system,
Right.
very helpful because the analogies really, definitely life applicable
Right.
so that you can kind of see, especially for people like myself, that when I'm learning by show and tell, show
Right.
me and tell me,
Right.
so that I can get a visual of what
Right.
that means, and quickly I'm able to think into those things when I'm in that
Right.
moment.
Right. That's amazing. Thank you.
Of course, this is wonderful. Thank you. Thank
Yes,
y'all so
ma'am.
much for taking our time to
Yes, ma'am.
walk me through this,
Yes,
because
ma'am.
it is a bit confusing and it's a lot of
Right.
information, to
Right.
cover. And so
Right.
I'm really appreciative, and this is
Yes,
really
ma'am.
great.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Okay, so now so we're approaching um the like the end of the slides. So ultimately, I just wanted to just kind of highlight a few things that might help also when thinking about trading and life in general. Everything compounds, work compounds, and sometimes we underestimate what we can get done in a longer horizon, right? And so we always trying to, get everything today and do everything today, but sometimes you make so much progress, right? So much more progress when you just kick the timeline out, and just break things down into small steps. So, like I said on here, Rome wasn't built in a day. At least that's what they told me. I don't know if it was or not. I wasn't born then. But yeah, so just learn to just build gradually, step by step, with everything. And then just break your goals into smaller steps, and execute based off of that. And I also wrote, faith and discipline are the foundation of your dreams, right? You have to first have faith that it is like all of this is possible. And then you have to be disciplined also too with following these systems and the strategies that you have in place as well too. Now, when it comes to compounding and breaking things down into smaller steps, I would recommend utilizing like compound interest calculators. Sometimes you could kind of see like, okay, if I make 10%, if my initial, startup capital is $100 or 1,000 or whatnot, if I make 10% on this amount every single day, at where would I be at by the end of the month? All right. And you're able to like also reverse engineer things like, okay, if my bills are 1,000 or 5,000 every month. Okay, what is a good amount that I could start with if I know what I'm doing? And then, what percentage on that do I need to make, for the month to be able to get to that moment to really like take care of my bills. Because I feel like sometimes we overestimate what freedom, like what it costs to be financially free. Because we always have these big goals, like I want to be a millionaire. You don't need $1 million to be free. You don't. You think you do. But in no actuality, like you just figure out what are your monthly expenses, right? And tally it up and break that up. Like if you're able to figure out a way to supplement for whatever your monthly, expense is or whatever your monthly income at your job is, then you can walk away. You can be free. So sometimes it's not always, oh, I made $1 million or I have $100,000 cash and now I'm free. Sometimes it's okay, if my bills are 5,000 a month, then what does it take for me to make that every month through trading? Right? Sometimes that's what it is. But sometimes we look at it and we think, oh, in order for me to be financially free, I have to be worth millions. Sometimes it's not that. Sometimes it's putting yourself in position to where you can replace the job income, right? And now you buy more time back. And now you can then scale up as time goes on. Now you can decide, okay, well, I want to make double. I have the capacity for that. And then you start to increase your income or whatnot. But at the start, freedom from the job or whatnot doesn't have to be $1 million. At the start is what are my monthly expenses, right? How do I make that? Sometimes it might even be starting with, okay, I just want this trading to be able to cover one bill. And then, you get to a point where it could cover all of your bills. But nobody's bills are $100,000 a month, at least that I know of, right? Except business owners that I know. But outside of that, for the most part, it's doable. You don't have to have $1 million to be free. You just need to start with what is my monthly income and how do I replace that, right? And get it myself from the market. That's it. So I think, just working with compound interest calculators, like, of course, you may not double up every single day, but you can like work with the compound interest calculator based on what works for you. What's your goal every month, right? And okay, you figure out, okay, what do I start with? And how do I make a small percentage every day and eventually get to that point monthly? Right? That's it. That's really all it takes. We overcomplicate it. We think, oh man, I need to be a billionaire to be free. No, you don't. You just need to be able to still make what you were making from your job or whatnot to replace that and still keep the same lifestyle. That's it. And that's very doable. It's very much possible. It requires a lot of learning and discipline. And some days, some months may not look the same, but ultimately, like it's very much possible. Very much. And it doesn't take as much as we think. We don't need all of that to retire. We just need to replace whatever the job or whatnot is producing. Now you got more time on your hands. So now guess what? With that extra time, now you can build other skills. You can build a business. You can learn other things that produce income. So now the 8 hours you were given, maybe now you only needed to dedicate 4 hours to trading. Now you're making the same amount, but you freed up 4 hours of your time. And guess how much that other 4 hours is worth? Whatever it is you can make from trading, you can make that. So now it's like you have 2 days in one because you bought back time. That's what trading is about. People go into it thinking, oh, I want to be rich. It's about buying your time back. Because once you can free up your time, then you have the wiggle room to be able to do other things and then get rich and wealthy and build wealth. It's God helps you and gives you the capacity to. But it starts with buying your time back. And it's very much doable. It's very possible. So that's just it. So I wanted to talk about compounding and then books that I recommend, right? So I recommend Trading in the Zone by Mark Douglas and then also Technical Analysis by Barbara Rockefeller. So these are not just books that I just just brought up. Like these are books that I have as well too, that I've read multiple times, all right? I have it right here in my workstation. But I recommend these two books because for the technical analysis, like it breaks down like foundational stuff. Within that, just for beginners and things of that nature. And then for trading in the zone, it talks about psychology and then risk to reward ratios as well, right? people having 1 to 3, risk to reward and different things like that, and just understanding the math, right? That sometimes you don't have to be right 100% of the time to be profitable. If your ratio, right, your risk to reward ratio, win to loss ratio is set appropriately, ultimately you can be right 50% of the time and still be profitable. So all of those things are things that, was talked about in Trading in the Zone. And it talks about, just the attitude, the mindset as well too. So these are definitely two books that I recommend as well too. And then questions. I say we're at the end of the presentation.
This is
Have any?
this is so amazing. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
I am going to ask if your beautiful, amazing wife would put the names of those books in the chat so I can just kind
Yes,
of, because
ma'am.
I am going back through the replay, of course,
Yes,
many,
ma'am.
many, many times. But
Yes,
I would like
ma'am.
to just kind of snip them
Gotcha.
now so that I can have them and go ahead and order them. And then my next question would be, are these on Audible?
It
I
should be.
definitely love hard copy books. Your wife can tell you I
It
have books
should be.
everywhere. But yes.
Yes, ma'am. So, yeah, if you want to type that in the chat, um, that'd be great.
So are you
Yeah.
saying that it definitely is
I think it should be
possible?
because I have these books in two forms. I
Okay.
have the physical copies that I just showed you, and I also have the audio books
Oh,
as
it
well
does.
too.
Okay,
Yes,
good.
ma'am.
That's what
So if
that's
it has the audio books, like I use the Books app on the iPhone, I bought the
yes.
audio books through there. So if they have it on there, they should have it on Audible too. Because I feel like Audible is like more mainstream with audio books. So
Yes.
I believe they should have that. But if they don't, books for sure. The Books app on the iPhone definitely does have that for sure. The audio versions.
I love that. And I think
Yes,
I
ma'am.
have audiobooks because when I was
Mhm.
doing some things for school,
Yes, ma'am.
always learning, right?
Yes, ma'am.
I was able to use audiobooks. And then
Right.
equally, there's another app that I'll use, and then I'll just snip each chapter or whatever, and then it'll read it for me.
Gotcha.
Just kind of help with that. But yes, so I love it. And then sometimes Kindle will
Right.
equally pair you with Audible
Right.
too. So I'm definitely excited.
Yes,
Yay.
ma'am.
And this, when I say this has been really, really informative and amazing.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much for your time because I
Yes,
know it
ma'am.
takes time to be able to pour out like this. So my
Yes,
prayer is that of course, all your time is redeemed, that
yes,
everything that y'all
ma'am.
poured out, be returned back to you.
Amen.
I love that.
Amen. Thank you so much. So I just want to just end us off on a scripture that I wrote down as well too, because I do feel like one of the reasons why I was like also like hesitant also with sharing this online is because money is good in the right hands, and as a teacher, if you're teaching something pertaining to financial prosperity, you want
Mm-hmm.
to have like some type of morality built into it, or just not teach it at all. Because ultimately, money in the wrong hands is dangerous. And so that's why I have this on here, like just in case if I have to share this, presentation with people that may be in the world or whatnot, then ultimately, like I have these like subtleties within there as well, because I do believe that that's very important. God withhold certain things for a reason because some people will either destroy somebody else or themselves. So I do, believe that that's important. But I do feel like it might be time as well, just based on what you said earlier also. But um this is something we already know. It's God that gives the ability to build wealth. And so this is mainly just I guess for others, but it's a good reminder for us that this is, it's God's doing. It can only be, there's a scripture that says, Paul planted, Apollo watered, but God made the increase. And whenever I think about that scripture, I realize that it's possible for Paul to have planted, Apollo to have watered, and there have been no increase,
Yes.
right? So it's possible to
Yes.
plant, water, and not receive increase still, right?
Yes.
Even though you're like those principles are adhered to. And so if that God factor is missing and just having the right intent for like having, money for like kingdom purposes,
Yes.
sometimes that's the case, And so I think ultimately, like it's important to just be reminded of this because we want the increase. That's why we're doing what we're doing. And so, of course, we plant and we water. At the same time, we have to always just ascribe that credit to God because it's God that makes that increase as well too. So I had that in here to end off. I was trying to figure out which scripture I wanted to end off at, but this seemed like the perfect closeout scripture. So, but that's it. That's the end of the presentation. Hope you all enjoyed it.
Amazing. Thank you so, so, so very much.
Yes, man.
This has been really exciting. So I do appreciate it, and I really appreciate this coming from kingdom principles,
Yes, ma'am.
because there's a lot of individuals that speak to financial freedom in different ways,
Right, right,
but what you're speaking to speaks to those of us who are in this world. We're not of it, and
right,
we need to understand. You said
right,
something key is that wealth or the seed
right,
in the wrong hands can be dangerous.
right, right.
So that's where you spoke to the psychology behind it, you spoke to the
Right.
biblical principles, and that's interwoven throughout. And I think you can't separate it.
Yes, ma'am.
And this may not be for everyone, but
Right.
it is for someone, because there's
Absolutely.
so many people out there teaching with different methods, different,
Right.
theories about it, and they're not really looking at the disciplines. They're
Right.
not really looking at the faith aspect of it, but you
Right.
are. So
Right.
there are millions, I know,
Right.
billions
Right.
of souls out there that are hungry for what you have to offer, and they need it. Not just, want it casually, but their why is aligned with the why that I have as a woman of God
Right.
and a woman of faith, and aligned with the why that you and your wife have as
Right.
well. So I wouldn't look at the faces. I would put that out there. I would cast it, your bread out there on the water, and it's going to return to you with dividends. And that is in your pouring out into the kingdom of God. Because the kingdom of God, I think, we're constantly looking for God to do a thing,
Right.
but we don't always respect the seed.
Right.
We don't respect what it looks like to um for the multiplication. We're saying God bless it, God multiply it, but the
Right.
disciplines that go into what that looks like to, cultivate that seed. So
Right.
you spoke to that all the way throughout, and then equally, wanting God to just say poof. You talked
Right.
about discipline. You talked about time, seed, and harvest.
Right.
And all of these things, and then what it looks like to make money in this time and age, in this
Right.
dispensation,
Right.
living in this time, being discerning. You spoke about that equally throughout when you spoke to the indicators, but that also means using your discernment and what does it look like to pivot and to make money in this day and age? What does
Right.
that look like now?
Right.
So I think this is timely. It's timely, and for all ages that you're old enough to understand what it means
Right.
to want that financial freedom and the disciplines that go into it.
Yes, ma'am.
So I am so grateful. I'm appreciative,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
it's been amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank God.
Yes,
Uh,
God, to God be the glory. To God
yes,
be all the glory.
yes, ma'am.